I was listening to you cover this story saying like, oh, there's Harry getting, oh my God, there's Harry getting pooped on by the president of the United States.
Good.
It's just not a sentence. Number one, I imagine you ever thought you'd say, or a sentence I ever thought I'd hear.
How do you feel about that? I know that you have a tough skin.
I doubt it.
He's attacking me in a petty, gross, disgusting way. But I think the more concerning story here is that I think this is his genuine feelings toward peaceful protest, that if he could, he would attack in some way, shape, or form the people who dissent.
Stop being such a pussy.
In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live, a proud duct tape production for Wednesday, October 22nd. Thank you for tuning in. Sitting shotgun tonight is someone new to the role, but not new to the show, Matthew Mastronardi. Welcome back.
Saddle up, partner. Thank you, Matt. Nice to be here.
Now, Matthew, I'm afraid that we have already met our Matt quota on this show. We have way too many. There's an abundance. And so you have to be Matthew. I know I asked you last time if you go by Matt or Matthew, and I think you said Matthew anyway, but I can't remember.
Yeah, Matthew, and especially if there's more than one Matt, it's like we just have to do it.
I know we're somewhat close in age, so were you like me where every single class you had, every single job, every single social structure you participated in, there was always another Matt? I was always Matt C my entire life.
Yeah, I've met, an above average amount of Matts, in my opinion. There's a lot in this sort of like media world too. Well,
this wouldn't be the first time we've had a Matt and Matt show around here, so welcome. I'm going to have to start getting rid of them. I have way too many Matts, but I appreciate your participation. You may remember Matthew from earlier this summer when he was fired from his job as a high school teacher in Spokane, Washington, because he read an American classic novel out loud in the classroom. He read To Kill a Mockingbird Uncensored, which, says it.
He said the N-word.
So we'll catch up with what Matthew is doing now momentarily. Otherwise, in the news tonight, a North Carolina man commits a drive-by shooting at a house because he's enraged by a Trump sign. An illegal immigrant who attacked ICE agents in L.A. and got shot for his trouble was previously honored by the city of Los Angeles. So a very interesting development in the past couple of days there. Karine Jean-Pierre is back, Matthew. And she is telling us that she never actually saw any signs of Joe Biden's mental decline. The woman who was probably with him professionally more than anybody else. Hey, she was as stunned as anybody by that.
That might say more about her than anything, but we all know she's just a titan of intellectual, person,
Well, we'll she has a new book out that she's trying to sell. So we'll see if anyone's buying the book. And a woman actually did it. She left the country to escape Donald Trump. Of course, every time there's an election, they said it in 2016. They said it again in 2020. They certainly said it in 2024. If Trump wins, I'm leaving the country. This woman is going viral for actually doing it. Rosie O'Donnell actually did it too, to her credit. But this woman did it, and she now has regrets. And she says it sucks, and she wants to come back. So we'll check in with that story wherever she went. Plus, of course, we'll take calls, voicemail, and emails, and your super chat to close. And yes, there will be many emails that will tempt me to tap the sign.
Don't make me tap the sign.
If you'd like to call the show, you can do that using the Discord server linked in the description. There are instructions and help available on the server. You also have time to leave a voicemail tonight for the show. We'll play it later. The number's in the description. Head on over to mattchristiansenmedia.com/contact. You can click to call from there too. But before we get into it, Matt, got to say hello, or Matthew, I'm sorry. We have way too many Matts. Got to say hello to our friendly listener-owned business for the evening as well. And that's our friends over at Hero Soap Company. Whoops. As I put up the razor blade promo, what am I doing? We're selling soap tonight, Matthew. When you try
Nice.
Hero Soap Company, not only are you getting a great smelling, all natural product, not only can you subscribe and get soap straight to your door each month, but you can get signature soaps designed by yours truly. Timberline is a classic frosty pine experience where the forest meets the peaks. Double menthol for that high altitude cooling effect. Or try Old West, highly underrated, people say, in the reviews on the Hero Soap website. The smell of sweet leather and oak barrels will bust open the saloon doors. And don't forget, Hero doesn't just offer bar soap. They have shampoo, conditioner, cologne, and more. You can get 10% off all of it using promo code MCListener. Let freedom clean with Hero Soap Company. Promo code MCListener. 10% off site-wide. HeroSoapCompany.com. Plus, they have a special scent for Halloween. Step into the shadows of sophistication with Dracula, the scent of sandalwood, with subtle musk and amber undertones, confident, calm, and undeniably magnetic. Let freedom clean even after dark. 10% off that too. HeroSoapCompany.com. Promo code MCListener. Promo code MCListener, 10% off at Hero Soap Company. Find all the information, mattchristiansenmedia.com/deals. Deals by listeners for listeners. All right, Matthew. Some people listening now may have missed your first appearance when you were on the show earlier this summer. So before we get into what you're doing now, can you give a quick recap about your immediate prior history where you were a high school teacher and are not anymore?
Yeah. So, like you alluded to, this happened really over the summer. So, right at the end of the year, a situation arose in my classroom where I was reading from the book To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah, right here. You got it pulled up. And yeah, I dropped a full hard R reading directly from the book because, it's, if you've read To Kill a Mockingbird, they use historically accurate language. And I was trying to teach my students about context, historical context versus intent. And like you see that video right there, unbeknownst to me, I was being recorded and it went viral around the school. And eventually it got me canned.
And you appealed the firing, and that was not successful. So the school board stood by your termination. Now, did they say it's because you said the N-word, or was there a reason given at all?
No, they can't actually come out and say it's
Okay.
because of that, because I think they know that that's not a good reason. And so they made up this vague thing about poor judgment, concerns from parents. But, at the school board meeting, hundreds of people showed up in my defense, students, parents, members of the community. And man, it was crazy. We had 2 overflow rooms, standing room only. And we had public comment for over an hour. And it was really cool. So even though we didn't get the result we wanted, it still felt like a victory because people just aren't drinking this censorship thing anymore. And it was just really cool to see that students could understand the context of the situation. But why can't the elected officials and the school board members, they're just kind of protecting their necks?
Cowardice, yeah. That's the simple answer. But I gather that last we talked to you, mentioned you'd started a business with your brother. Now, your brother was also a teacher at this high school in Spokane, yeah? And you guys have started a business together now?
Yeah, so he was another Spanish teacher at the same school. He worked across the hall from me, and we had a pretty sweet gig. Sometimes he would come into my room and take a soda out of my fridge or something, just like kind of Big Brother style. And we had a cool dynamic working together, and the kids loved it. He quit in protest, which was pretty cool. And then over the summer, we bought a business. So
you bought an existing thing. You didn't start from scratch. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So what are you doing?
Yeah, we bought a bake shop. It's called Half Baked.
Okay. So you kept like the same branding and all the stuff okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So there's like smoothies, pretzels, cakes, cookies, all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not a baker by trade, but we have some pretty great employees. And so we split, the investment down the middle to mitigate risk and things like that. but just learning how to be business owners now and taking.
But you guys
ownership.
got employees of the prior owners, like that all came with the business. The people you didn't have to train people necessarily then. They
No,
were
and we
already-
didn't really
okay.
want. We there was a chief baker who worked there, and we kept her on, and she's amazing. She helps us get through a lot, and I'm pretty good at making pretzels now, and some of the cookies and cakes, and we don't use any. We use organic flour. We don't use cheap ingredients. We don't use seed oils. We use real butter, real sugar. So it's we sell products that I would feed to my family.
Is there a way to support that business without being in Spokane, or is it just like a local spot only?
We are going to start shipping cookies. So you can if you follow me, I'll eventually post like our website, or you just go to halfbakedspokane.com, and eventually we're going to have a way where you can purchase online. We'll ship around the United States.
Now, we've been talking about having you sit in on the show again for a little while now, and there's been different obstacles in each of our lives. But one thing you mentioned to me, and stop me if this is purely private, I should have asked you ahead of time, but I didn't. You had mentioned that there was some kind of Charlie Kirk drama at your business. Is that okay to ask about, or would you prefer to sidestep that one?
I mean, yeah, I can talk about that.
Okay.
So the Charlie Kirk thing affected a lot of people. It was a tragedy, and I think it's a day in American history that we'll remember forever. And a lot of people were affected by this. People who are fathers, husbands, just saw the gruesome nature of what happened. And, I felt like I needed to show some sort of support, some sort of solidarity. And so, yeah, we put a picture of Charlie Kirk up at our shop for a few days, and yeah.
What are we talking about? Are we talking about something small in the corner,
Yeah,
or a
dude,
giant
it was like
poster, or what?
a 4x6 picture.
So you had to be right there to even see it.
Yeah. And
Was it customer facing? Was it in the back? I just want to
it was
understand
facing
why
the
people
customers.
get. Okay.
And a lot of people really were touched by it, and they appreciated the gesture. But a few people who were not paying customers, first of all, so they didn't even visit
They
the
never
shop.
are.
And
Yeah,
they took
makes
a
sense.
picture of our shop from maybe 100 feet away. And
They
zoomed
didn't even
in,
bother
and so
to come talk to you, of course.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
they posted it on Reddit, and this Reddit thread went ballistic. Like, it had over 800 comments, and it just a lot of hate, really. And then people started review bombing our business. So people who wouldn't come to our shop, they would just leave us 1-star reviews. And
Are you
leave
able to
hateful
fix
comments.
that? I always wonder what do you do if you run a business that gets
You can. It's
digitally
really hard.
attacked in that way? Okay.
You can remove them, but it's takes a triumphant effort. You got to call. I imagine you have to wait on hold, and to call Google, it's not like they're just picking up the phone to talk to you, right? You got to probably wait a long time. And I've talked to other businesses who have had to get Google reviews removed, and yeah, it takes a while and it's hard work. So we'll do that eventually. But
You
we
think
still
they'd
have
be
a
able to see
4.7.
like, okay, there was a whole bunch of traffic at this particular time.
Yeah.
Clearly, these are not paying customers who bought pretzels and thought they tasted bad. These are people upset for some nonsense reason.
Yeah, I mean it's total BS, but it actually made us, just more resilient. We were a little freaked out at first, but when you realize that most people, when you engage with them in person, whether you agree or not, they tend to be agreeable people, and so I think we're past it. The dust is kind of settled, but it was a disappointing thing for sure.
Yeah, you just start, well, for you're starting a new business.
Mm-hmm.
You put a small little gesture, a small little piece in your place of business to honor someone who had just been murdered.
Yeah.
And people are so enraged that they have to destroy the business. It's not enough for people just to say, hey, I don't know, I wasn't a Charlie Kirk fan. Maybe I'm even glad at what happened, as it seems a lot of people seem to be. But it's not enough for them to abstain from patronizing your business. They have to try to take it down. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that
you
went
could
through
just
that,
let
but-
people process this tragedy the way they see fit. It's within their rights to do so. But we're living in a really divided time, and that's really sad.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and they have divided your life a lot recently. So I'm glad to hear that you have something else that you're working on in a way of moving past all the nonsense that you've been through in the last few months. And I really wish the best to you and your brother with this new business endeavor. And it's encouraging, man. You never know whether your job gets taken away for political reasons or just you get laid off because the business failed. Your job is never guaranteed. It could disappear at any point. You might have to do something tomorrow. And just as a man and a fellow father, I find it very encouraging when someone like you is able to go from career A to B with, I'm not saying it's easy, but you make it look easy or it sounds easy. And that's encouraging to me that if you have to go do something else, you can, and you can still support your family and be a good husband and dad. And congratulations on doing that.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the support that you've shown, man. It was really cool seeing you do your first report on my story, and then inviting me on, and again tonight. So I mean, there's good people out there looking to help other good people.
Well, if you continue participating in this show, you will learn that unfortunate N-word drops are that's like some of my favorite content. I'm not a leading newscast in many areas, but sometimes N-word drops or things that sound like N-word drops. That's my particular area. I break news in that area all the time, so I'm sure we'll return to it.
Let's do it.
But hey, moving into the news, are you caught up in the meme controversy of the week? The Donald Trump's Top Gun airplane poop drop meme. Did you follow that?
Yeah, I did. I was a little late. I was like 2 days afterward, and I know it involved Harry Sisson, and yeah, I'm familiar with it. I saw it, and I saw the video with Don Lemon interviewing.
Okay, well, that's what I'm going to get into. Is they're still searching for answers, Harry Sisson and company, on why such a thing would ever be posted. Now, we went through this on Sunday, so I won't go through the details of this meme once again. But yes, over the weekend, Trump posts a fight himself in a crown, mocking the No Kings people, flying a fighter jet over New York City and dropping sewage, excrement on them. And Harry Sisson, I don't know how you say his name. I think it's Sisson, and I said it wrong on Sunday. But Harry Sisson was very confused. In fact, he was urging, one of the funny things about the story was he was urging media to demand answers from Donald Trump. Why did Donald Trump post a meme of me getting pooped on? And J.D. Vance himself responded and said, okay, Harry, I'll ask him for you. But I don't think J.D. Vance actually has. At least I haven't seen J.D. Vance follow up. So I think Harry Sisson is still searching for his answer. And that's why he went on Don Lemon's show to discuss. Don Lemon, just as mystified, no idea why this would actually happen. But here are Harry Sisson and Don Lemon discussing the great poop drop fighter jet meme.
JD Vance responding to you with, don't these people have anything better? The president of the United States, why do you think he cares about a young influencer? Doesn't him and JD Vance have better things to do with their time?
I have no idea why the president of the United States and the vice president of the United States are more interested in social media beef with a 23-year-old who's still in college, as opposed to, being interested in leading the country. It's not an answer that I have. But on the point of JD Vance in particular, I don't think this guy has anything to do during the day. I think his job in the White House is kind of just tweet, attack people on social media who are against the administration, and then occasionally go make a speech. I think it's not just a me thing. I think he has a little bit of a crush on all of us. He just won't ever admit it.
That's a big game, man.
Pulling out the AOC line, Matthew. Anybody who criticizes me wants to date me. They have a big crush on me.
A lot of these guys, they all put on a facade for social media, and it's I can't actually believe. I would wager that Harry, behind closed doors, is actually really excited about this media exposure.
I was thinking this on Sunday. That is, now I'm never going to get this, but one of the things about me, Matthew, and longtime listeners of this show know, I always get passed over for the hit pieces. So when everybody else gets smeared in the media, they just gloss over me. I never get them. Now, I've had a few, but not nearly enough to earn my credentials. But if I had the president of the United States posting a meme of him taking a dump on me, identifiably me, I would consider that a career accomplishment.
Yeah, it's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is interesting is like this is kind of what he lives for. Like it's like, what's the quote? They say it's not a story when the dog barks at the moon, but it is when the moon barks at the dog. It's like, this is what he's been waiting for. I mean, secretly he is just so happy about this because he probably gained 100,000 followers, and it's just.
Well, then why can't they just say it? Why do they have to feign this outrage and this disgust? And I don't know. And I don't even understand. It's like, I hate the weird double standards here. That is to say, well, I'm 23 and I'm in college. I'm just an idiot. Why would he care about me? But also, I'm so sophisticated that I should be in a position of political leadership and everyone should look to me for political philosophy. I'm important and I'm nobody at the same time. I'm smart and stupid at the same time. And for this criticism of JD Vance, JD Vance, what's he doing all day? Well, he has time to. Okay, you implored people to go ask the White House for answers. JD Vance says I get he's joking, but you got a response from the Vice President of the United States. You're demanding access. Here's your access. And instead of saying, okay, can I have an answer to my question? Now it's, well, what are you doing? Don't you have more important things? 5 seconds ago, it was very important for journalists to investigate this. Now you have the access and it's not important at all. And it's a waste of the vice president's time, but it's all a game, of course. Why even try to understand the reasoning here? Yeah,
no, that's a great point. You said, he finally got it. One thing I'm thinking about is it's called a No Kings protest. That's what this whole thing was over. You don't see anybody on the left or on Harry's team complaining about senators who have been in power for 50 years, right?
In fact, they're leading the protest. They're tearing up the crowns, Nancy Pelosi.
Who really act like kings and queens, and they govern in such a way. Why aren't you arguing for term limits and things like that? The double standards that you could make a whole list of them. There's too many to count.
You know who's also really outraged by the poop meme? I should ask you, are you familiar with the movie Dumb and Dumber? Okay. Now,
it's a great movie.
I used to review thank you. Because I used to review movies on the former iteration of this show, and everybody loved to hate my movie reviews, but then they also are mad at me for stopping movie reviews. So, it was a great discussion point on the show that maybe will come back sometime. But I have maintained that Dumb and Dumber is perhaps the greatest comedy ever made. Do you think that is overstatement, or is that fair?
I think it's a fair statement.
Okay. So it fair to say for you, that's like top 5 for sure, if you're considering it for greatest of all time.
I mean, in the realm of comedy, it could be.
What has your consideration otherwise? What are the nominees?
Oh man, I'm so bad when it's on the spot like this.
I'm just trying to get you to say that Dumb and Dumber is the greatest comedy ever made, so I can be validated.
I mean, tentatively, I'll say yes.
Okay, thank you. That's where I was going. Agree with me. Tell me I'm right. It's really the main purpose of this show. Okay, anybody who's seen Dumb and Dumber, and frankly, the poop scene in Dumb and Dumber, Harry Dunn, Lloyd Christmas gives him the laxative to get back
That's
at
one
him.
Of the greatest scenes.
I actually think the poop scene is one of the worst scenes in the movie.
Really?
Because it's so over the top. It's all physical humor, which I get, but to me, the slapstick of Dumb and Dumber is not its best. It's cleverly written in a stupid way, if that makes sense. But that's why it shines. It's not the slapstick. And I actually do think it's kind of gross slapstick. I'm not pearl clutching about it. I'm not mad at the movie makers. I love the movie. Love Jeff Daniels' performance in it, but Jeff Daniels made that scene. He was the actor in that scene, and now he's very upset at the indecent display of excrement.
I would like to think that things like decency and civility and respect for the rule of law and respect for things that are bigger than you, including the office of the presidency, which is different than a monarchy. You know, the meme that he had where he was flying with the crown and the, spewing excrement all over the people down below.
The country, America.
Yeah, you tried it. Would Lincoln have done that?
Now, I know that opinions on the Civil War are complicated. I think it's fair to say that Lincoln did a lot of things worse than poop memes. Even if you view Lincoln through the traditional heroic lens, which I don't necessarily over time, but there were things that were done in the context of the Civil War that were much worse than poop memes. I don't know your thoughts about that, Matthew.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. Over time, as you study Lincoln, there's some troubling things for sure that are worse than poop memes.
No kings. Lincoln did some kingly stuff from time to time, but tonight's not a history lesson. Anyway.
What's interesting, I'll just say one more thing, is like, isn't it funny how when people on the left all of a sudden become the most patriotic citizens, they have admiration for the Constitution.
I loved that about the protest over the weekend. 1776 was cool again.
Yeah. But it's only when it's politically convenient. Right now, a lot of governors, right? They couldn't be more for states' rights, right? Well, if you actually believe that, why don't you believe in states' rights all the time?
Yeah, we the silence over the last 4 years, and I'll call out Trump too when he does bad things that are overreaches of federal power, because I share that. I think that pretty much all police power belongs to the states per the 10th Amendment, and that's for a wise reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, of the many ironies over the weekend, the people shouting "No Kings" were the same people who wanted every possible whim of a restriction on your life 5 years prior, 4 years prior.
Yeah, they wanted you thrown in jail if you were just having a barbecue in your backyard with your neighbors.
They definitely want you thrown in jail for the words that you've said if they had their way. But let's move into something a little more serious, because you talk about Charlie Kirk, and one of the things I looked at recently was the supposed science, the studies about the ideological motives of violence. And you hear this all the time, claims to the effect of, well, Charlie Kirk's bad, and yeah, that happened, if they're not blaming it on right-wing ideology, if they grant that it was even motivated by something of a left-wing ideology. But that's such a rare exception. Political violence is pretty much the exclusive domain of the right. You'll hear that talking point frequently, and I was wondering what the basis for that was, so I went looking. But forget the Charlie Kirk assassination. That doesn't count. Forget the attempted assassinations on Donald Trump. Don't count. Forget the transgender shooters we've seen quite a few of recently. Those don't count. I guess there's another case that doesn't count that broke this week, and frankly, you don't even see it much in the news. But if the politics were different, I think this would be a much bigger story. A guy in North Carolina, he's from Georgia, but he was in North Carolina. He's accused of just seeing a giant Trump sign on the highway, becoming enraged, tearing it down, and then exchanging gunfire with the homeowner. Now, when I first saw this headline, I thought there's got to be something more complicated than that. Like, this has to be personal, or there's something that I'm not getting other than just saw a Trump sign, became enraged. But that is apparently the story. This is west of Asheville, North Carolina. The guy that we're looking at is an accountant from Atlanta. He's named Benjamin Michael Campbell. And he was driving through the gorge on the Nantahala River. I'm not great with North Carolina geography, Matthew. So if you had time as a geography teacher,
never been there. It's one state I've never been to.
Well, if I mispronounce things, tell me. With your, I guess you don't have North Carolina expertise, but other states.
No.
Anyway, so there's a guy named Mark Thomas who's an area resident who lives right on the highway. He's got a big Trump sign right on his property. And we'll see videos of this in a second, but you can see the Trump sign is on, I guess, these awnings over some buses or something. But there's a big Trump sign on his property right off the highway. And so at the time, Thomas, the homeowner, he's home. He sees this guy, Campbell, pull up in his car, get out, and just start ripping down his Trump sign. And so Thomas actually comes out on his porch armed and fires 2 warning shots. Now that, I don't know what North Carolina has to say about that, but
he's just following Joe Biden's advice from a few years ago. Fire 2 rounds.
Did you ever, the song of that? God, it's one of the greatest internet productions.
Was a good song.
Yeah, that thing is awesome. But yes, he's following the Joe Biden
protocol.
I don't know if this guy used a shotgun, if he bought a shotgun or not, but he's following the Joe Biden advice that he gave to Jill. So Campbell, this guy who drives out, he tears down the sign. He throws the sign on the ground. He gets back in his car. This is the homeowner fires 2 warning shots. And instead of leaving, Campbell then grabs a gun out of his car, raises it through the sunroof, and starts shooting at the house multiple times.
Jeez.
The report says about 6 rounds. So we actually have several angles of video of this incident from Thomas, the homeowner. He must have different cameras on his property. Got a little bit of Daily Mail music over this, but you can see the guy pulls up, gets out of his car, walks across the highway, starts tearing at the sign.
Dude, what kind of cameras are these? These are like they're moving.
No, he's like aiming them and stuff. So he clearly cares about monitoring his property. Well, he tears it down. And at some point here, the homeowner fires the warning shots. This guy gets in his car and starts shooting a handgun of some sort out of the sunroof of his SUV and drives away.
Wow.
Now, for whatever questions I may have about the legality of the warning shots, it doesn't sound like there are any charges against the homeowner. Campbell was arrested September 30th in Georgia, where he's from. He faces charges of felony assault with a deadly weapon, discharging a firearm to incite fear, and vandalism. He was extradited to Swain County, North Carolina, where this happened, on October 7th, released on $70,000 bail. So when I read this, Matthew, I mean, like I said, I thought there has to be more to the story. Oh, he must know the guy and hate him. They must have some pre-existing fight or something. No, this guy's not even from North Carolina. He was driving through there for reasons we don't know, saw a sign, became so enraged he had to get out of his car, interrupt his day to tear it down, and then ended up exchanging gunfire with the property owner.
Yeah, there's a Babylon Bee article that came out recently. It was why won't conservatives give up their guns? Ask the people shooting at them. And this is just the perfect example of that.
Exactly. Yeah, I've referenced it many times on the show, but the funniest meme to me to come out, to the extent comedy can come out of the Charlie Kirk thing. But yeah, it's the same thing. If you would just help us ban the guns, we wouldn't have to shoot you with them.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of reasoning.
It'd be interesting to see if there's more that comes out about this guy politically or ideologically. Like, is he a registered Democrat? Is he anti Second Amendment? Because what can explain that? I mean, this is the people who are so against MAGA and so against Republicans and the Second Amendment and are the ones over the last 6 months to a year conducting the most gun violence.
It's a dangerous game. I just can't imagine what it's like to see a political message that you hate that much that you start going and physically meddling with the property. I see stupid bumper stickers all the time. I see stupid yard signs all the time. I've seen homes with a whole collection of yard signs that are idiotic. Like their yard is more sign than grass. You know what I mean? But I guess maybe in your head you're thinking, that's so stupid, someone should take it down. But do you not recognize that if you invade someone's property like that, gunfire is a fairly likely outcome? Especially if you're targeting someone who's openly conservative or right-wing in their perspective.
Yeah, and like what is, do you not have anything more important to do? Like where was this guy going?
We don't know. I was trying to find out. Yeah, there's nothing about why he was there or where he was going.
And to get out of your car, to stop your car, put it in park, cross the street, trespass, that takes precedence over the next thing you have to do that day.
It does say he's a married Atlanta native, so that had to be pretty. All right, I had to go to North Carolina.
Can you imagine
for
telling
business.
your wife why you're not showing up?
His wife's probably like, "Yeah, great, cheering him on, love you, appreciate it." She's probably driving this insanity.
Yeah, probably.
Another crazy episode in the last couple of days here. ICE operations, of course, going on all across the country. Heavily protested is a nice way to put it. Violently resisted in many cases. And that's happening in Chicago, certainly happening in LA. There were ICE operations that got a little kind of a little weird in LA yesterday. I mean, they got violent, but the circumstances of this arrest are kind of odd. Agents made an attempt to arrest a man named Carlito Ricardo Parias. He is an illegal immigrant from Mexico, and he is known on TikTok, actually. He has a fairly large TikTok account. He's called Richard L.A. And ICE agents surrounded him. They've actually been trying to arrest this guy for some time now on allegations he's been obstructing ICE arrests in Los Angeles because he has this big TikTok account and he records ICE activity. And there's nothing inherently wrong with recording necessarily, but the allegation is he actually obstructs, that he's been obstructive. And there have been multiple attempts to arrest him. He fled at one point, apparently successfully, but they caught up to him at his home on Tuesday morning. And so agents surround him at his home while he's in his car. And then Richard L.A. attempts to ram his way out. And when he attempts to ram his way out, agents opened fire. Now, this is all according to DHS. We don't have body cam video to watch. But they opened fire. They hit him in the arm, and they eventually are able to detain him. There was a U.S. Marshal who was hit by gunfire as well. According to the statement from DHS, it was a ricochet. So I guess friendly fire that ricocheted. There's no allegation that I've seen that this particular, that the target of the arrest, the illegal immigrant, shot at them, but there was some kind of ricochet, some bounce of gunfire that hit a U.S. Marshal in the finger.
Man.
And so they obviously they're both injured. This illegal immigrant is shot in the elbow. This U.S. Marshal is shot in the finger. They both go to the hospital. And one piece of this story that's worthy of some attention is the rioters that are consistently interrupting ICE operations actually go down to the hospital and were apparently trying to break into the hospital, I guess, to free this guy. I don't even know what they're trying to do because he needs medical attention, and you're interfering with the staff at the hospital.
Anti-ICE protesters then swarming the hospital, at one point pushing towards a door, appearing to try and get in.
So how these people
Just
remain...
take the stretcher and throw it in there.
It doesn't have to make sense. I just don't understand. Why are we obstructing healthcare access? The guy needs hospital treatment. He's been shot. Why don't I just...
Yeah,
I mean,
and just like the fear that you're causing all the staff and like the nurses and the doctors who are just trying to do their job, like they have no idea the context of what's going on, and that would be really scary if you're working at a hospital and all of a sudden you have people just trying to barge your way in, like.
Well, and how that's allowed to continue too. I understand that there are a lot of political motivations that stop the arrest of anti-ICE rioters. We know there was a stand down order in Chicago. You got Chicago police leadership saying, yeah, we know that they're attacking ICE agents and we know that ICE agents are calling the cops for help. Do not respond. That has nothing to do with immigration. It has to do with helping people in an emergency. In this case, yeah, it's tangentially related to immigration, but are we just going to allow mobs to block access to hospitals because they're angry? Why are these people not arrested in 5 seconds? I guess that's why. A political motive extends this far, I would have to assume.
Yeah, and I mean, this was in Los Angeles, where California has just been in shambles. You just see how the rise in crime over the last few years, right? Like, what was it?
Well, it depends who you ask. Gavin Newsom says it's the safest state there is.
Safest place in the world, yeah. Yeah, I want to take my family there. It sounds like a great place.
I've had some personal experiences otherwise. I have some family in San Francisco, and I don't enjoy walking around where any of these drugged out people could attack my family in a moment's notice. And I not only can I not defend myself, I can't carry anything to defend myself. If I do, I'm the criminal.
Anywhere people leave their windows rolled down and their trunks left open because they would rather criminals not break their windows, like, that's probably not the best place.
So I mentioned Richard L.A., this TikToker, illegal immigrant they arrested. He's been a target of arrest for a little bit of time now. He's evaded it. Now I guess they have him. He is actually charged as part of that incident for attacking federal officers. This because he weaponized his car is the accusation. He's trying to ram his way out of an arrest with a car. That's the danger that was presented to ICE agents. That's why they fired their guns in self-defense. is the DHS claim. Again, if we get some video to review, we'll update the story. But he's been a target for arrest for some time, but it's related to his TikTok documenting of ICE activity in LA. And this is where it gets interesting too. This guy's a known illegal immigrant. He's from Mexico. He's unlawfully in this country. He's undocumented, whatever term you'd prefer to use. And the city of LA actually recently honored him. This is a photo of the Los Angeles, a representative of the Los Angeles City Council for District 9, giving him an award for his TikTok work in recording ICE agents because they were recognizing his tireless efforts to safeguard our neighborhoods from illegal raids.
Wow.
So
he's not in ICE custody anymore? They let him go?
I think he's charged, and I think he's still hospitalized currently. But so pending his release from...
This was before that...
This is August.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're right. Let me clarify for any unclarity. Yeah. He was not recognized for this particular incident. He was recognized previously for all of his anti-ICE TikTok content. So you got the city of Los Angeles saying, well done, Mr. Illegal Immigrant Man from Mexico. We really love how you're standing up against illegal ICE raids because we love the rule of law, despite your presence here. But yeah, this guy who has been obstructing immigration enforcement, at least that's the accusation, got violent with his car toward immigration enforcement officers, was previously recognized by the city of Los Angeles. This is Karine Price is the name of the city councilman for District 9.
My gosh.
So it's not just sanctuary for the guy, it's public celebration.
Yeah.
And somehow in the name of the rule of law.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy that, like, it just shows that they're actually not trying. Like, they don't care. They don't care about people breaking the law, coming to this country illegally. There's nothing they want to actually do about it.
Oh no, they would prefer to facilitate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen it for years now. But anyway, what else is new in LA, I guess? Hey, guess who's back? As I mentioned at the top of the show. White House press secretary, former Biden White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. Just like Kamala Harris is on her book tour now. Her book is 107 Days, Matthew, detailing the amount of days she had to run for president after she was shoved into place. That's the title
of the book, 107 Days.
107 Days. This is what you do. I mean, I'm not saying Republicans don't do this, but it does... I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe this is a both sides thing, genuinely. But I swear it's like a Democrat thing. Whenever they leave, they have to write some tell-all book to try to scoop whatever cash they can off of the office.
Yeah, whenever they exit the public eye, they're usually getting a book deal of some sort.
Well, Karine Jean-Pierre, likewise, it's not 107 days. Her book is called Independent because she's supposedly leaving the Democrat Party now.
Who cares?
She doesn't believe in the two-party system anymore. So she's independent. She was literally the country's foremost propagandist. And I'm not even saying, I think Karine Jean-Pierre was a uniquely bad press secretary. But the truth of the matter is everybody who's at that podium is the country's foremost propagandist of that time. That's your job. So you go from straight up party propagandist to, no, I'm independent. I've had clarity. I don't believe in the two-party system anymore. Now, in fairness, I haven't read Karine Jean-Pierre's book. Maybe she has some compelling reason why she's had a philosophical awakening in this way, but I'm not going to find time to read that book. I don't know about you, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, she's been making the rounds. Just let her explain. What is it about the Democratic Party that you don't agree with?
I guess it's in the book. And maybe there's been some of that. I haven't seen all of her interviews and probably won't. But the thing that is catching a lot of attention is she's getting a lot of challenge on Biden's mental state. And she is she's independent. She's not part of, the party infrastructure anymore. However, she's still maintaining the line. I'm the closest person to Biden professionally, maybe the closest person to him outside of his wife. Never saw what we all saw. Oh, Biden was with it. He was mentally sharp the whole time. Here she was on CBS's morning show.
People said, why didn't members of his inner circle speak up about what many believe was the apparent decline of Joe Biden? And you said, you're a member of the inner circle and you never saw the decline. And after that, I wrote, how? Yep. You even write, Karine, that you were on the plane with him going to the debate and you didn't see anything.
So really, I want everybody to know that I take this question incredibly seriously. I do. I was his White House press secretary, which means I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him.
And you saw nothing.
For more than 95%. We've always said, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged. And he poked fun at it. We always owned up. And with age comes what happens when you get older.
Which is?
But when we talk about the mental acuity, and again, I take this very, very seriously. Yeah. I never saw anyone who wasn't there. I saw someone who was always engaged. I saw someone who understood policy, pushed us on the policy, and also understood history. And there were times, I'll tell you the story, there were times where he would call me into the Oval Office and I would be like, oh no, because I knew whatever he was going to ask me was going to be direct, was going to be about a story he read, about how we're pushing back, how we're pushing a message forward.
Now, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Matthew, but she needs to go back to the Ronald McDonald hair. She needs to take your same
I actually
hairstyle.
like that look on her better. Like, I'm just trying to... If she was just a stranger and I saw both of those, she looks way better like that with that hair.
Not that the point is the hair, but yeah, this straight hair wig thing. No, she needs to go back. She is properly, her proper look is the Ronald McDonald look, and we need to return to that. But what are we even watching here? And I'm not asking rhetorically. I'm actually curious what you think. Is she avoiding accountability of the cover-up? Does she actually believe what she's saying? In which case we have to question her mental state.
Yeah, she was saying the same thing. I think she went on Stephen Colbert's show and sort of like the same thing. I just don't understand because everybody, even a lot of the Democratic, I shouldn't say the left-wing news media, it's like they see it. So what are the political consequences if you just admit it?
Especially when the whole point is independent. Yes. Presumably she's not looking for some sort of approval from some power center. Now, the party has since moved on from Joe Biden. Of course, we saw that with the installation of Kamala Harris. But even if there's some power structure that is looking to maintain this obvious lie that everybody knows is true based on watching the Biden presidency from afar, how do you brand yourself as independent but stick with that? Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I think they could score some points by coming out and saying, yes, we noticed this and you were right. That's the exact reason why
I would respect her so much more if she just said, yeah, it was total bullshit. And I saw what everybody saw, but it was my job to say otherwise. That's why I'm now independent, because I was paid to lie for years and years and years. That would at least be honest. I'm expected to believe you're a complete moron now because you're telling me you never witnessed this. But if anybody could convince me she is a complete moron, it would be Karine Jean-Pierre, who stood up there and said moronic things for years.
Maybe they're just hoping that in 100 years from now, historians will read her book as like the closest confidant of Joe Biden, and when they're reassessing his presidency and writing it for the history books, because right now nobody's buying it.
Nobody's literally buying the book would be my guess. I don't know what the sales numbers are, but the one thing she says too, I don't know if it's a tick for her or maybe she picked it up from Joe Biden, but she says multiple times in just that 2-minute segment, hey, I'm being very serious right now. No, I'm being very serious. Remember Biden used to always say, it's not a joke, not a joke. I'm being serious. It's not a joke. And then he'd say something that wasn't joking in any way. So who would think that's a joke?
It wasn't even embedded in the question in the first place that you would answer not being seriously.
Exactly. So am I left to conclude that you're insincere on every other topic, but you want to specify that you're serious about this one? It's just a weird thing to say multiple times, even if you think it's just a filler. People say things in their sentences that don't necessarily belong there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm serious. Maybe it's that, but multiple times. I
don't think she has anything else to say. So I think it is a filler word, and
maybe
it's really bizarre. I kind of want to read at least that part of the book. Like what else? What evidence does she provide?
We don't lie on this show. That's a rule.
Maybe I get the Spark Notes or something. Maybe you can listen to it on audiobook when you're got nothing better to do.
I don't know. You're the teacher. You know where to find those things. Anyway, last thing I want to talk about before I get into some calls. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show, this time last year during election season, we heard a lot of people saying it. Anybody from ordinary people to celebrities, hey, I'm leaving the country if Trump wins. And only a select few ever actually do it. Shout out to Rosie O'Donnell.
Did Tom Hanks ever do it? Did he move to Greece or something?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. I think Rosie's the only one.
Is she still out there?
I don't know if Ireland has accepted her yet or not. But she did go to Ireland. Yeah. And by that, I mean, like, have they given her permanent residence or citizenship or whatever it is she's seeking? Yeah. But I got to give a shout out to this unnamed woman who went viral. I ran across her this week. Now, most don't actually leave the U.S. because they know, despite what they're saying, it sucks really bad elsewhere. So even if you hate this country or claim to hate this country, you do recognize that the quality of life is way higher here, and that's generally for a reason, despite your political persuasions otherwise. But this woman also did it just like Rosie O'Donnell, but she didn't go to Ireland. She went to Costa Rica. So when you're picking where you're going to flee, this woman looks at Central America and sees everybody coming here legally or illegally and thinks, no, I'm going to go to Central America. Why?
It could be a good play, to be honest. All the criminals are leaving that country, coming here.
Venezuela is awesome now. Yeah, it's great. So part of her story is, I went on a really exotic vacation when I was younger to Costa Rica. It was beautiful. Yeah, you went to the 5-star hotel. And now you live in the rest of Costa Rica, and it's not that great.
Mm-hmm.
So she failed to learn her lesson from all the Central Americans coming here. She went down there. Now she says it's not, in fact, that great, and she regrets the decision and wants to come back.
If you're an American who is considering leaving the country to move somewhere else, make sure that the location you choose isn't based off of fear and lack mentality. I regret moving to Costa Rica. It's a beautiful country. I love the nature and wildlife, but moving to a third world country where I don't know the language, I don't have any connections, resources, or opportunities, that didn't make my life any easier by any means. I was just so scared of what's going on in America politically that I was in fight or flight. I was like, how am I gonna afford to survive? Like, how am I gonna find a place to live? Like, I was freaking out. And then I came here and made my life so much harder. And now I'm trying to go back, and I just like wish I didn't leave in the first place. And it's so weird to like want to move to America right now with everything that's going on, but I just left so many privileges and resources
Notice
behind.
The bars on the window.
I want them back. It sucks. I always thought that I was so poor because I was the poorest person that I knew. And all of my friends had like millionaire and billionaire parents. Now that I've traveled, I've seen like real poverty, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't poor.
Hey, if you don't like America, then you can get it.
She actually did it though, and so she has earned my respect for that. But yeah, you're right. I didn't even notice behind her there is that bars? Is it like some kind of shutter? I don't know.
It looks like bars to me.
Okay. I don't know where in Costa Rica she is, so I don't know how relatively safe or not it is. But yeah, hey, sorry you had to learn the lesson the hard way, but I will take the lesson. If you think you're poor and threatened in the United States, try it. Try living somewhere else. You will learn what real danger, real poverty actually are. It's like, Matthew, I don't know what years you might have been in school, but I was an undergrad in college, 2006 to 2010. So I like to think I beat the wave of insanity by just a hair. Like it was starting to become crazy when I left. And I remember whenever there were supposed threats on campus like that, like people would say that campus was unsafe or something. Now, I went to Lewis and Clark College, which is a small liberal arts college in Portland, Oregon, and it looks like the Shire from Lord of the Rings. You know, like, okay, it's you can't get safer than that campus. It's a very beautiful campus. I loved being there. But I remember having the same thoughts when I was young. Like, I'm sorry, if you don't feel safe here, there is no place in this earth for you. It's like if you're complaining about the homophobia in San Francisco, I'm sorry, that's the best there is. It doesn't get safer for gays than this. What? It doesn't get safer for left-wing college students than the college campus I was on. When the terror, when the danger is manufactured in that way, it's not just that it's kind of pathetic from a show perspective. When you start to believe it, you do destructive things like this. This woman has maybe not ruined her life, but clearly set herself back significantly and regrets what she did. Stop engaging in the delusion before the delusion causes you to damage yourself in this way.
Yeah. I mean, she even said in the video, like, I should have thought about this before I came here. I don't speak the language. I don't have any friends or resources.
You got to help her out. I assume they speak Spanish there?
Yeah, they speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And what did you expect? But I mean, this is not just a left thing. It's part of our culture is like people are not thinking 2 or 3 steps down the road.
It is a skill that's lacking. Yeah.
She obviously didn't have much of a savings account to live off of, because I like to think that, you know, the dollar goes a long way in some of those third world countries. I think I could leave right now with a couple $1,000s and last longer than she did, right? And what did she have a job? Was she planning on teleworking? If you're
I'm sure she has
there,
many marketable skills in Costa Rica. I'm sure it's working out great.
She might be teleworking, like working for an American company.
That'd be hilarious.
Online.
She does HR for some, big corporate.
Yeah, answers
entity.
the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be able to live a pretty lavish lifestyle if you're making an American salary with American dollars to spend in Costa Rica.
You got to spend them all on bars for your windows. It goes fast.
Gosh, that's crazy.
Well,
I wonder how long, did she say how long she lasted down there?
No, and that's the thing I don't understand about this story is like, I found it in the Western Journal, and there's a tweet post of it, but the person who posted it is not the woman. So I don't know where the video was recovered from. I don't actually know what the timing of it, and I don't know the specific location, but I do know the philosophy, and I think the philosophy is worthy of discussion. But yeah, I don't know any of the particular details of it.
Man, how funny would it be if she lasted like 1 month?
I mean, it's presumably it's like within the last year, right? It's election day or after generally. So somewhere in there, but I don't know.
Yeah. You need time to plan.
Yeah.
Maybe she left in like January.
Well, are you ready to take some calls? We'll get into
let's
that.
do it.
Okay. You should be good on the Discord server. So let's bring Tom in here and see how this goes. Actually, Tom, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Now it's a duct tape production tonight. This is Matthew's first attempt on the Discord server, and we might have some echo issues. So in case you are hearing me or him twice, you might just have to power through it. I hope that's okay.
All right. Well, we'll see how it goes.
What do you got for us?
All right. Well, we have in New Jersey, we have a gubernatorial election coming up in about a week and a half.
So it's how do I say that guy's name? Chittarelli? Is that what it is?
I think that's how it.
That's the Republican against whom?
Mickey Sherrill, who is currently a Jersey representative in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
So she.
I know. I was just going to ask about the prospects because I know 2022 was surprisingly close against Phil Murphy. He must be termed out or he's gone. I assume.
Yeah.
You think, is there any chance of getting closer to red in New Jersey?
I don't know.
Are you asking me?
Feeding me a lot of videos that.
Can you not hear Tom?
To imply that
it was a little
Hold on.
quiet.
Here's the duct tape. Okay. If you have trouble hearing Tom, you can right click him and bump up the volume a little bit.
How about this? Is that any better?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine, but maybe Matthew can't. Anyway, carry on, Tom.
So I've been the polls I've You're saying the algorithm was feeding me a lot of videos that were saying Citarelli is surging, and New Jersey might flip red, and so. But then I just went on Real Clear Politics a little while ago, and all the polls still show Cheryl is like plus 1, plus 5, stuff like that. So, I mean, I know the polls are skewed, and we'll see what happens in a week and a half. Around my neighborhood in South Jersey, I see a lot of signs of both types. So it's pretty even down here.
I don't know why. I ran into this last week. I was trying to pull up a search of the polling aggregation for New Jersey governor. And just like on Sunday, whenever I was trying to run a search during the stream, it's giving me a CAPTCHA to run a Google search. I don't know. This is... I can't do it. Let me pull this up. You keep going to bail me out here, Tom, because I want to see what the polling is. All right, everybody can play CAPTCHA with me. Here's the cars I have to pick just to see what the polling is. Now, that's a road in the top right. There are no cars in there, right? Okay, thank you.
Cars, yeah, no cars.
God,
no cars in the
Is
right
Citarelli the Republican?
He is, yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, it's all Cheryl.
Let me get this blown up a little bit bigger so I can see what the polling says here. But so Cheryl's got an average of 4-point lead in polling dating back to the end of September. But 4 points, I mean, that's not massive for what is thought to be a solidly blue state.
And I thought the debate that they had, she kind of flubbed a couple questions in that, or at least that was the report I saw. Of course, the report I saw was probably somewhat biased.
All right. Well, thank you for the New Jersey update, and Godspeed to your state.
Yeah,
thanks for calling in.
Okay, well, it was nice seeing you, Matthew, and Matt. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thanks for calling in.
All right, take care. I don't know if he was able to hear me at all, but
yeah, I heard you.
I think we're good. Yeah.
Care.
Thanks for bearing with the duct tape. I usually kind of just let the callers go, and then we'll chime in with each other about it a little bit. Not that you're not allowed to talk to the callers. I just so you know what to expect. Things I should have discussed with you before we went live, but it's a duct tape production, Matthew. So that's how we go. It always rolls on, one way or another. Let's talk to Skulldugger. Skulldugger, are you there?
Yes, I am.
What's on your mind, sir?
Let's go ahead and test the duct tape right now. Matthew, can you hear me?
Yeah, I had to turn it up a little bit, but I can hear you.
All right. Well, hello, Matthew.
Hello.
I had two things I wanted to touch on. The first one was just sort of in response to the poop meme, the Trump shitgate. I'm not surprised by it, but it's still just one of those things that I still find unnerving, is that the left doesn't seem to grasp the concept that these protests themselves are distasteful. The very nature and message of the protests are in poor taste, and the way that they're carried out and some of the things that happen at them are in absolute poor taste. And so trying to then pearl clutch about a meme, an AI meme that's actually pretty funny. The left is missing something here.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of echo off you, Matt. That's why I had to kind of adjust on the fly there. But yeah, Discord is, bouncing off the walls. Anyway, we'll deal with it. Duct tape production issues once again. But yeah, I take your point that there's a reason that the King branding or the King labeling has come into this, and that is because maybe it's a lower grade smear. It's not full on Nazi, you know what I mean? But I think your point on distasteful, no kings. There's a question of what that means. Does that mean that we are supposed to remind this particular president that he's not a king and just trust that the guy that we call Hitler and a rogue king and all this will reform his ways and voluntarily surrender power and become the restrained constitutional president that they want, or is the label king designed to invoke the sort of anger, even violence that they've invoked with their rhetoric otherwise? What do you think about that? Is it why did they pick king, I guess is my question.
Well, no kings is a direct call for violence. It is a reference to the French Revolution.
Is it?
Okay. It is what they shouted as they marched King Louis to the guillotine.
I did not know.
Which is why the guillotine was the official symbol of this No Kings rally. There was guillotine posters. There were guillotine shirts made. There was guillotines everywhere.
You mean over the weekend there were?
Yes.
Oh, I actually didn't see that, but I don't doubt your point. I'm sure they were probably out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, the media is not going to show it to you. But yeah, it's all over X and other places.
I forgot to hit my timer for you, so I guess you're off the hook. Any other thoughts you want to say before you're out?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the Karine Jean-Pierre stuff. I just cannot buy the fact that she was front and center at communicating all of that administration's lies from her podium, but she was unaware of that lie, of that one particular lie. That was the only lie that she was not a
that was
party
the
to?
one. Yep, that was the one.
I don't believe you.
You're gonna have to read the book to find out, I guess.
I'll pass.
All right. Well, thank you for the call, my man.
All right.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on any of that before we move on to the next caller, Matthew?
No, I mean, just great points, to be honest. You got some solid listeners.
They're thoughtful. I appreciate them. Now we'll get to the sign tappers momentarily. No, they're also thoughtful. It's going to be fun. We're going to get into some deep philosophy in just a bit. Turles is up next. Turles, go ahead.
Hey, hello there, Matthew and Commentator 6.
What's on your mind?
I had a little bit of a laugh at your expense when you were talking about hit pieces. I was like, yeah, even when he gets a hit piece, they can't even specify him by name.
Some of them did, but they're few and far between. Yeah.
Yep. Hey, one of these days we're gonna have a good long discussion about old Honest Abe. It's become kind of popular these days to trash on the guy, and particularly in the dissident right circles on social media. And no doubt there's I certainly don't invalidate all of those opinions, but I'm no historian, but I am a bit of a Lincoln enjoyer, so I'm perfectly willing to offer some pushback on some of those perspectives.
Well, are you retarded?
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's obviously complicated. The civil, nothing is as simple as this perspective 100% right, this perspective 100% wrong. So it's not even that I'm a Lincoln hater per se. Obviously, the institution of slavery had to be defeated and it had to go away. I think there's a question of how that would have happened or whether that would have happened independent of the Civil War. But I think maybe some of the pushback that you're talking about, or the fashionable perspective on some of the right now, is just a response to the fact that Lincoln, I think, is presented as something of the opposite, that he's not a perfect villain. He's a perfect hero. And I think that is clearly not true from a constitutional perspective, as in the way he wielded his power with respect to the division of power between the federal government and the states.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that as I've thought about it, I actually find myself taking almost like the edgier case, which is that I kind of appreciate when somebody who faces tough times makes tough choices, and I feel like that's what we like about Trump in many respects on certain issues, right? It's like he's willing to be a little pushy, In fact, in some ways, if we have some criticisms of him, it's that he doesn't push hard enough in some areas. So, when it comes to Lincoln, for example, it's like, all right, are there things that by the letter of the law, we would say that's clearly a violation or what have you. You know, sure, that's probably true. And yet at the same time, if you don't have somebody tough who is willing to I guess wield the power that he has in the ways that he can, do you get manifest destiny? Do you get the American empire in the way that we encounter it in our own lives? And those are all very interesting questions. I think I kind of tend to think no. I think the world looks way different without the sort of willingness to do what had to be done from where from that perspective of the preservation of the Union and basically not just preservation but growth and expansion. And I do think that one of my favorite historical topics is the Panama Canal. And I think it's very interesting that you can't do something like that these days because, hundreds of people died in digging the canal. And in those days, people were willing to make different kinds of sacrifices than we are now. And so
the world kind of demanded it. We live convenience, luxury, safety, all of those things. I'll allow your Lincoln simping. But yeah, I take your point. It's more complicated than simple, obviously. But
right.
But I also forgot to hit the bell for you, so I'll have to round out the call. But if you have a final thought, go ahead.
Sure. As is my custom, I do want to recommend a book before I go.
Okay.
You may have heard that the Daily Wire has a show coming out in January based on a book series. It's kind of a fantasy epic sort of thing called The Pendragon Cycle. Now, the original books by Stephen Lougheed, great read. He started those back in the 80s. The core three that I want to mention are Taliesin, Merlin, and Arthur. So this is a King Arthur saga. And great novels. If you like fiction and you like fantasy, you like Lord of the Rings, that kind of thing. Merlin in particular is my favorite. Absolutely great book. Highly recommend that sort of thing, especially for young men. It can really give you an interesting sense of what honorable masculinity looks like, I guess.
All right. Well, thank you for the rec. Thank you for the call. And maybe sometime we'll organize some Lincoln and Civil War thoughts a little more thoroughly.
Yeah, that would be fun.
All right. Thank you, sir.
See you later.
All right, Matthew. For some reason, Discord causes your mic and stuff to go a little haywire. So we don't have to turn you down again because your mic came in really hot right there too. So I don't know if you can adjust that for me, or we can. Get
How's that sound?
Go again.
How's that sound?
Still a little hot. Can you turn it down some?
Yeah,
I don't know if Discord's doing that or.
How's this?
Keep going.
Hello.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
I think we're probably fine. Let's try that. I'll let you know. It's probably just that the software is auto adjusting your mic. You can close out of Discord now if you want. Just quit it entirely, and we'll leave it there. Appreciate our callers tonight. Thank you guys for calling in. Did you have any? I actually had you muted so that we didn't get that feed coming through. But you had mentioned you would greet some Civil War discussion enthusiastically.
Yeah.
Do you have a general Civil War take or Lincoln take you want to offer?
I like what you said about just the complexity. I don't think any war can just be boiled down to good versus evil necessarily. I think that there's usually some wrongdoing on both sides, for sure. But as I've studied the Southern War for Independence,
thank you,
more and more.
What about the Northern aggression?
I prefer the word Southern independence, mainly because just definitionally, the word Civil War means two factions fighting for central control.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that is not what was taking place. And so I think, as I've delved more into the issue and the history, I lend more and more credence to the Southern cause because of the issue of secession. Now, I know slavery played a central component towards the latter years, but at this point, I'm pretty convinced that Lincoln did not send 75,000 troops into the Southern Territories in 1861 to end slavery. He did not do that.
Are you one of the most persuasive people I have encountered, and is in the dissident right, as our caller Tarlis was discussing his Razor Fist case on this? Are you familiar with Razor Fist, or have you seen it? That's a good one, and there's a lot of stuff to that theme. I mean, Razor Fist is of the perspective that Lincoln was not actually interested in abolishing slavery really at all. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but if I remember his perspective correctly, it's that was really a front for power grabs otherwise.
Yeah, and that's what it was. I mean, do you know who Brian McClanahan is?
No.
He has a podcast. He's written several books. I've never read any of his books, but I've listened to some of his podcasts. And he makes a lot of really interesting points about the Civil War and Lincoln. And one of them is there was, I think, 7 or 8 southern states that had not seceded. Like, they remained in the Union all the way up until Lincoln invaded the South. And that was the tipping point for them. And so the issue wasn't slavery; it was the Constitution. Because it really is not the South versus the North; it was the South versus the federal government.
Yeah,
and the North, New England, had entertained ideas of secession multiple times back in the 1790s. During the War of 1812, they wanted to secede, and nobody made a fuss about it.
Well, I think one of the most important questions too is whether there is a constitutional right to secede. And it's of course not part of the Constitution. And I find that to be kind of fascinating. Either the framers thought it was so obvious that the Union was voluntary that of course you could leave whenever you want, or somehow it slipped their mind. But just in pure moral terms, like, what do you call a club that you can't leave? What do you call a place that you can't leave? That is kidnapping. And we don't give the government some separate special moral plane. They exist in the same moral universe as the rest of us. Why does the government have some kind of special moral right in that way? Now, I know the counter is, well, what do you mean? Does every individual have the right to opt out of the government? But that's exactly what the states are for. That is their purpose. That is their function. That is to say, to the extent government requires the exercise of force of some over others, we're going to decentralize that exercise of force so that if you disagree with the use of force in place A, you can move to place B. You can either stay in place A and try to get it to better reflect your views, or you can go to place B where maybe things will be better. So I fundamentally agree with your characterization of a states' rights dispute here. Now, the counter that is often presented is, well, states' rights to do what? What states' rights to do? Hold slaves? Okay, even if it is states' rights to hold slaves, state police power extends to all the worst things. Murder, abortion, rape, you name it. However you rank slavery in the order of immorality there, we don't grant the federal authority to come in and just forcibly rewrite state murder laws. That's not a thing that exists. States reserve the right to police murder within their jurisdiction. Why? Slavery is a moral wrong squarely. I think pretty much everybody agrees with that. You can't own someone else's labor in moral terms. But that doesn't mean that the intended design of our country, or the proper moral structure, is a federal government that comes in and bulldozes everyone who has a different legal system.
Yeah,
from their preference.
I agree with everything you said. And when you have this discussion, oftentimes it can be so emotionally charged from either the person you're talking to, because they will assert that you are trying to somehow bring back slavery, which that is not the case. I'm not aware of
I don't know. I saw Gone with the Wind. Things were better back then. I think we should consider
who's upset that today that slavery's, it's a complex institution that has, for all of human history, has existed. And, you don't see people today protesting a lot of the slavery that exists today. You can talk about predatory lending. You can talk about some of the abuses overseas and some of the slave trades in Eastern Africa and things like that. But It's an incredibly complex issue. Slavery, in my opinion, would have died a natural death, or you could have had some sort of gradual emancipation. Brazil didn't need a civil war where 500, 600,000 people died to end slavery. And they got rid of it, I think, in 1889 or 1881. And so, yeah, the Civil War was a civilizational clash for power. And I think the constitutional argument largely was upheld by the South.
I could go on and on about the Civil War, but this has been our brief Civil War aside.
Great story, compelling and rich.
Thank you for indulging, and thank you to our caller for bringing that to us. Speaking of callers, let me get into the voicemail that we have tonight. I think I just have one in the inbox. I'll give it a quick refresh just to make sure. Yeah, it looks like just one voicemail. Now, Matthew, I mentioned that if you need a break, if you need to step out for fatherly duty, whatever, you just say the word, because speaking of the moral problem with holding people captive, I would never do that to you. The reason I'm bringing you this warning is because if you think that the Civil War stuff gets in the weeds, we're about to get in the weeds of this show.
Okay,
we're about to get
it.
into the sign tapping. Now, I was trying to explain this to you. Well, before I get into that, let me remind people, just so I don't forget to remind people how they can participate if they'd like to email or send a voicemail to the show. Head on over to the contact page of my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/contact. You can submit emails or voicemails right there through that page. We appreciate your participation in the show. But yes, it is that time. We will get into the sign tapping material.
Don't make me tap the sign.
So for those of you who hate this is the time where you turn off the stream and you go to bed. And we're gonna you do something better with your time this evening. But I was explaining to you before live, Matthew, that this sign tapping concept. A few months ago, I raised the proposition that the purpose of marriage is the production of children, the raising of children. That is to say, the defining feature of the male-female union is the capacity to have kids. Marriage exists as an institution to uphold the responsibilities and obligations that are owed to those children. And we've had a lot of challenge to that point. And to me, this point is so firm and I think obvious, though, of course, I'm going to get a lot of challenge to that. So I don't mean to say that to dismiss the perspectives of others. But when I say sign tapping, that's what I mean.
Don't make me tap the sign.
They make me tap the sign anyway. So first voicemail up tonight is on the sign tapping theme.
You and your guests have attempted to reverse engineer several reasons why polygamy, so-called gay marriage, and other methods of creating children are immoral due to the impacts they would leave on the children. However, not one of these actually strike at the heart of the issue. Only marriage between a man and woman can produce children in a way that still encourages the parents involved to get to heaven. Any other method is evil because God deigned it to be so. Theologically, it has nothing to do with the ill effects on the children, as even poorly raised children are only morally created under wedlock. Several of Christ's own ancestors were polygamists, and their sin was not failing to properly raise children, but rather not honoring the way God intended marriage to be from the start. One man and one woman, Adam and Eve, joined before God. This is why God chose Isaac, the son of Abraham's wife, and cast out Ishmael, the illegitimate son of his slave. It just does not matter if well-adjusted children could ever result from any other kind of union. Marriage is just one of three holy vocations, the other two being celibacy and ordination. But you'll notice that the point of all of these is to get to heaven. There are so many good things that all of these vocations achieve, but those are all secondary to the goal of every man and woman ever created, to get to heaven.
Well, thank you for the call. Hold on, let me close out my voicemails here. I don't think there's anything reverse engineered about the premise that a man and a woman make a child and there are responsibilities owed to that child that are a result of that. I think that's about as first principle as you can get. And I actually do think that principle does exclude the sort of things that you're talking about. One man and one woman make a child. They have responsibilities and obligations to that child. That does exclude polygamy, and that does exclude gay marriage. Again, I'm not sitting here trying to condemn everybody and say you're bad. What I'm saying is there's a unique property of this relationship that creates its purpose, that establishes the organizing principle here. So I think that principle does get to the heart of the moral, because it is the heart of the moral. Now, you say that, I'm not sure I totally understand the disagreement with the call. As I'll get to when we close out these thoughts, Matthew, a lot of these are faith-based arguments here. I know that sometimes splitting hairs is worthwhile and important. I actually think there's more agreement with many of these points than disagreement. As I'll get to in closing, I think we're kind of talking about the same thing. But what is the reason for disapproval? Let's grant the point here. God disapproves of polygamy. God disapproves of gay marriage, would be the premise of the call. The question is why? What property do those lack that the union of one man and one woman have? It would be the capacity to have children. That's the organizing principle that makes this make sense. So I don't think it's reverse engineering. I don't think it's trying to shove a point into a place where it doesn't fit. I think it logically follows from that base premise. Now, I grant theological, scriptural reasons for arriving at this conclusion too, to the extent that I think this is in service to God's purpose. Of course, I think those things are generally correct, and I'm not here to dispute them. But I'm not sure I would agree with the premise that marriage is primarily a gesture for self to get to heaven. And Matthew, I know you're a man of faith, and maybe you have some thoughts on this. I invite them in a moment here. I guess I've just never heard it characterized that way. To me, marriage is a gesture of commitment to your wife and your children in God's honor, but it is for the sake of others, God included. Now, you get benefits, of course. It's good for you too. It's not like it's all cost, but it is a gesture to others. It's not a gesture to self to get into heaven, in my opinion. And I'm not sure I even understand how that would work. Why not just pick any woman off the shelf to get into heaven, if that is the organizing principle of marriage? The reason you get into heaven, at least in my idiot understanding, the way you get there is by honoring God's purpose. What is it about marriage that honors God's purpose? What special property does the union of a man and a woman have that makes it honorable by God? And it's the capacity to have and raise children. But Matthew, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I would only say I'm going to stick to what I know. You can get to heaven and not be married. And I think your state of salvation a year or even the night before you get married and versus after you get married, if you're a Christian, the Bible's clear that if you repent of your sins and you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and you make him Lord over your life, and you believe that he was risen from the dead, you will be saved. And you don't need to be married in order to have that. I don't think it makes it any more true after you get married. But marriage did exist before the fall, before Adam and Eve sinned. God told Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply. So that's one of the outworkings of marriage, is having children. We also know that there's a lot of language in the New Testament about, Christ and his bride, the church. And I think marriage is meant to display that covenantal relationship between Christ and his bride, that self-sacrificing love. God also uses marriage as a refining tool, because once you get married, you live and you cohabitate with your wife or your husband, depending, if you're a woman with your husband, you see little insights about how selfish you really are, and you have to self-sacrifice. And then you do that when you have children. And so I think it's a lot of things in this one institution, but I don't think it's necessarily like the sole purpose is to help you get to heaven. I think your spouse can be an encourager. You can grow in your faith, and it's easier to do that when you have a companion to walk side by side, and it gives you you're participating in what his created intention was to fill the earth. And so, yeah, those are just some of the thoughts I have.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you to the caller too. I know it sounds like there are points of disagreement, but this is what I'm saying is I think we all agree on such major points that we get lost in these kind of small points. And it seems like it's adversarial when it's really not. I'm not saying your call was adversarial. I appreciate it. I just don't want to be perceived that way myself. And thank you for the thoughts, Matthew. And as a reward, now I have like 5 more questions to the same effect. So I've got one from Drew, and Drew actually challenged me on this point last week, and I had countered to him because he said that I was wrong, or he didn't agree with my characterization of children being the organizing principle here, the purpose. And I said, okay, but what is yours? And his original email didn't have what he views as the proper purpose, and so now we're getting to that. He said, thanks for answering my questions and having a conversation. To answer your question, I think that the primary purpose of marriage is the union of 2 souls sanctified before God. I'd say the secondary purpose is producing and rearing children. This is to Mark from last week. Well, thanks for the well-wishing to Mark, who sat in on the show last week, and his appreciation of your name. But part 2, he says... he says he does find the argument very compelling about the 2 becoming one flesh, meaning the married parties produce a child. That's both the mother and the father. Thanks, Matt, from Drew. Appreciate that. I had brought that up previously, not because I know that it is the scriptural intent with certainty, but I'm aware of that language, Matthew, that in marriage the 2 become one flesh. And my question is that metaphorical? Or to me, that reads literal, as in the 2 become one flesh in the child. The only way it's one flesh in the literal sense is the child, but I'm not, scriptural expert guy. That's just the way I read it. But as far as your points, Drew, thank you for following up on the discussion last week. If I take your point, the purpose of marriage is the union of 2 souls sanctified by God, I think the question remains, what does God sanctify? Why does God sanctify it? If it is one man and one woman, I don't know if that's your answer, but to me that is, then the question is why? What is the unique property of one man and one woman? What makes it worthy of this sanctification? It's the capacity to have children. It's the defining property of that unique relationship. So I'll give you another question, Drew. I know it sounds like I'm giving you homework, but I'm actually interested in following this logic. I'm not necessarily trying to prove a point or something. I'm asking legitimately, not rhetorically. What is it about marriage that makes it sanctified by God? Why did God pick that arrangement? What was the unique thing about it? What property did it have that caused God to pick it? But maybe we'll come back to it later. Matthew, do you have thoughts on that one?
Why did God pick marriage as the institution to sanctify? Is that what you're saying?
Let me phrase it a different way. That is to say, if I grant the premise that God honors the marriage of a man and a woman as something special, not man and dog, not man and man, not man and a whole bunch of women, but man and woman. And I do grant that premise. I think that's theologically, scripturally sound. Again, based on my non-expert take. But if God does he bless, does he honor, does he sanctify that union because he just rolled the dice and it landed on man and woman? Wow. I guess that's what it is. Or is there something about that union that is special and makes it worthy of the honor?
I'm probably not going to answer this perfectly, but God created man in his own image, and out of man he created woman. Man's nature and woman's nature complement one another. Each have, there are masculine virtues and masculine traits and feminine virtues and I think all of those give us glimpses into God's character. We will never know it completely or fully, but my instinct is that both of those, the man's nature and woman's nature, together best reflect what we can know about God's nature here in his through natural revelation. And yeah, it's what God has joined together, let no man separate. That's so. I think it's to bring God glory ultimately, but I don't know if I can tell you pinpoint why exactly with confidence.
My contention is it is the unique ability they have to make a child.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that's controversial, hence all these questions. All right. You validated my Dumb and Dumber opinion. You're supposed to say, you know what, Matt, you're right. Good job. That's why you're here. No, I'm kidding. Okay, Paul says, your entire discussion on the point of marriage has overlooked the clue that defines the origin. God made man out of dirt in the wild. A lot of this is related to the Genesis stuff you were talking about, Matthew. God made man out of dirt in the wild, then placed him in the garden, which he had prepared. Hence, the man begins as wild. After observing the man for a time, God said, it's not good that the man should be alone. He said the word alone meaning as one or alone, like a lone gunman shot up the place. Eve not only wasn't made in the wild, but she was not made of dirt, rather of part taken from the man, ergo, the source of the attraction. The man wants his removed part back, and the woman wants to get back to the place she was taken from. Ultimate genius on God's part. In that process, God turned over the keys of creating new persons. No more would they be made directly of dirt, nor through the loss of a body part. He also gave them the option to make more or not. The line, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, is way misunderstood. You wouldn't say, get in the car and drive to the store and get a jug of milk and a loaf of bread. You'd just say, pick up milk and bread and look at the word and look at that word replenish. You don't just replenish a space never before stocked. Like you buy a new house with a pantry and you buy a new house with a pantry and you say, we need to stock it, not replenish it. Clearly, the inference there is that there were others there before them, but don't get me started on that. Okay. Again, I don't necessarily think that we have a wide area of disagreement here. At least if we do, I'm not seeing it. The point that you raise, you said that God had given Adam and Eve the capacity to create life now, handed them the keys to make life. Yeah, that's the unique property that I'm talking about. The union of man and woman, that's exactly what they have, is the capacity to make new life in the form of children, to replenish, to multiply, to create new life. So if God turns over that capacity to Adam and Eve, turns it over to man, are we supposed to conclude that God was indifferent as to whether we actually take that action and make new life? He didn't really care if we do or not, or did he give us that capacity for a reason, for a purpose? And if he did, doesn't it make sense that marriage is the institution that protects, that upholds those responsibilities and obligations that go along with creating new life? I think if God gave us that ability, the intent was to use it, and marriage is the institution that serves that. Your thoughts, Matthew?
Yeah. The one thing that's coming to mind is if we appeal to the ability to procreate, I think that you sort of get into defending God's decisions based on utility or a consequentialist ethic. And I believe that we ought to be able to say, because God has made it so, or because God has commanded it. Like, God doesn't need us to defend his decisions or based on the utility of something or the fact that there's certain natural law arguments. Those can supplement, and I'm glad that they're there. But ultimately, I think it's best when we say, because God has made it so.
Well, if those two things are aligned, they're not even different. You know, I guess I would ask, how does that align or not align with the assumption that everything God does has a purpose and we ought to understand that purpose? That is to say, God said it's so, God made it so, and the answer for here's why can still be correct. They're not mutually exclusive.
No, they're not mutually exclusive, but like where they rank in terms of, I guess you would say your defense, like what do you go to first in order to defend this conviction needs to be that it's God's word. And it's because God has made it so. Why is murder wrong? Well, first of all, because God commanded us not to. When you say, well, look at all the negative effects, and sure, there are all those negative effects, and God, it's a natural outworking of, because it goes against what God has deemed to be evil, but we can't put the consequences above God's decision. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I think the reason murder is wrong is because it rests on the assumption that all human life has purpose given to it by God. I guess like I'm saying, I don't view that as a different point. You could rank them, I suppose, to the extent you view them as different. I don't view them as different. I view them as the same point. God has a purpose. I can't claim to know for sure because I'm not God, but I believe that God is working according to this purpose. And I think there's plenty of natural observation that supports it.
Totally, yeah. And I think that's the way it will always be, because there is a natural law which God has put over the world.
Also controversial to say on
And
this show. Not
it
for
always
me. I
traces
agree.
back to God's command.
Big fan of natural law and objective morality. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I got more, so don't worry.
Sure.
We got more to say on this. Be humble. He's going to submit to make me tap the sign.
Don't make me tap the sign.
He's actually doing a double dip. He's got a question later about something else, but I'll
allow it.
Anyway, he says, going to double dip to make you tap the sign. The primary purpose of marriage is centered on producing, or if the primary purpose of marriage is centered on producing and raising children, would you agree that the only morally excusable reason for divorce is if there is significant threat to the well-being of the children, and that staying in a loveless marriage is morally necessary so that the children can have their parents together? Does this principle hold true in childless marriages or for parents of adult children?
That's a good question.
Generally, yes. Yeah, you do stay together for the kids. And even if your kids are adult, you stay together for the principle that this institution exists, that the union of man and woman produces solid family, a support structure for those children. But I don't think that support structure expires when they turn 18 or 25 or whatever age you want to identify. To answer the question, yes, you stay together for the kids because the marriage is the organizing principle of the marriage is the children. It's not necessarily.
Is that the highest? Is that the number one reason? Is that why you would stay together? Is for the kids? Is that the number one reason?
Yes, but if you're asking, do I do it to honor God? I think it's both. And this is why I sometimes I don't even like the way these questions might be framed, because again, if the organizing principle of the marriage is the children, the marriage and the children are essentially the same thing. One is organized around the principle of the other. That is to say, I honor my marriage by honoring my children. I honor my children by honoring my marriage. I don't view them in competition in that way. I view them as essentially the same thing. My commitment to my wife is my commitment to my children. My commitment to my children is my commitment to my wife. If I betray one, I betray the other.
I
so
think
they're
there's
inextricably
a
linked in that way.
God-ordained place for each member of the household. I want to reframe that be humble's question really quick. Do you think it would be an excusable reason for divorce if say you got married and upon getting married you realize that your wife cannot have children?
Yeah, I don't think that that's acceptable.
It's not an acceptable reason for divorce.
It's not an acceptable reason for divorce to me because you've made a commitment to that woman in pursuit of the principle. But that doesn't mean that it's possible in all cases. Or that is to say, like, let's say a war came and wiped out all your kids. They all died. Does that invalidate your marriage? No, of course not. It was still in service to the principle.
But if you're saying that one of the highest purposes of marriage, the highest one is to have children, and
it's the organizing principle. It's the reason the institution exists.
If you can't carry that out, does it become less of a marriage?
No. We were going through this last week with Alan Keyes, the guy who debated Obama on gay marriage in 2004. And one of his points, it's really just the exception does not define the rule. There might be a worm in an apple, and I don't mean to say that insultingly. Like if you have trouble conceiving, there might be a defect in that way. But the worm in the apple does not change the definition of what an apple is. It doesn't change the fundamental character or organizing principle that is the apple. There's just, unfortunately, a defect in this particular apple. But we still all know what an apple is, just like we know what a marriage is, which is the union of a man and a woman organized to protect and uphold the responsibilities and obligations owed to the children that are necessarily a consequence of the union of man and woman.
Okay.
All right.
Anyway. I hear your point. Good. Again, I do think it might be splitting hairs. I do think at the end of the day, we're all getting at the same thing.
I actually think so too, and I want to offer some thoughts on that to close. And I promise for everybody, yourself included, Matthew. First of all, I appreciate the emailers. I don't mean to. It's just this horse is centuries dead at this point. There's no pulse. There's no breathing in this horse. He is thoroughly beaten. So I want to respect emailers who have thoughts about this, but I also want to respect members of the audience who are like, I know I've heard you make this point 50 times now. So I'm going to move through this last one, and then I'm going to offer some closing thoughts that I think hopefully tie all of this up. But Mrs. H, sorry, Matt, but you're wrong. Children are not the point of marriage. In the 7th chapter of the first, I always struggle with this word.
Corinthians?
No, epistle.
Epistle. The T is silent.
Yeah, that's why I struggle with it. To the Corinthians. Thank you for that, by the way. Appreciate it, Teach. Paul states that the reason for marriage is the legitimization of sexual relations. There is a lot of scripture here. I'm just, in the interest of time, I'm going to grant your point on the scripture and say Paul talks about the legitimization of sexual relations. I believe that to be accurate. I think that's true. If people want the references, they're on the screen. He plainly states that people get horny and it's easier to seek fulfillment or it's better to seek the fulfillment of those desires within the bonds of marriage than outside them. Yes, children are generally a natural consequence of that, but recall that Paul was writing this in the middle of the 1st century. They didn't really have much in the way of birth control, and definitely not the pill back then, save for celibacy and infertility. Having children was largely unavoidable. Furthermore, if the production and appropriate rearing of children was the sole purpose of marriage. I never said sole, I said primary, but I'll take your point. Then postmenopausal women wouldn't be allowed to marry. Were this the case, then if grandpa dies first, then grandma is alone for the rest of her life, unless grandma is, through the magic of multi-generational teen pregnancies, still under, say, 40 or 45. Okay, I get your point. That if you're old and you're no longer capable of having children, is the marriage still valid? Let me get to that point later. But I actually view the point on what Paul is saying about the legitimization and the proper restraint of the sexual relationship. Again, I view that as the same point. Marriage locks sexual relations into commitment that serves those responsibilities and obligations that are owed to the children. And those children are a natural consequence of those sexual relations. The point on birth control, I think, actually serves this point. Birth control is an artificial, modern suppression of the purpose of that relationship. And I don't think it changes what Paul is saying. Children are the natural consequence of the sexual relationship. Birth control suppresses that, but birth control isn't perfectly accurate. There's still the natural consequence, even with the intervention of birth control. So again, the question is, why does the sexual relationship need legitimization? Why does it need constraint? Why does it need focus? It's because children are the consequence. Children are owed certain responsibilities and obligations, and that's what marriage is centered around. So I think Paul is actually writing about the points that I'm making. 1 man plus 1 woman equals child. Marriage ensures that relationship upholds those responsibilities and obligations. On the point of postmenopausal women, this is really related to what we were just talking about, Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
The exception does not disprove the rule. The union of 1 man and 1 woman in general, in principle, is the only one that has the possibility and the capability of creating children. Not all marriages will have children. There are certain circumstances that prevent it. Sometimes people don't want to, whatever happens. But marriage as a general institution exists in recognition of that principle. Man plus woman equals child. That is the general principle that organizes it. There are exceptions, but exceptions do not define the rule. And even if you can't have kids, you're upholding the principle by organizing your relationship in a way that honors that principle and respects it.
Are you familiar with what gotquestions.org?
No, should I go there?
It's well, you could. And I just typed in, what is the purpose of marriage?
I got answers. I don't care what they say. Yeah.
And I just read the first paragraph because it gives the primary reason. And so Got Questions, for anybody who's listening, is sort of like an extra biblical resource. They answer, you can submit a complicated question about the Bible.
So this is Christian based. It's not like some AI thing or something. Okay.
Gotquestions.org.
Yeah.
And can I just read the first paragraph?
Are you going to dunk on me with this Christian robot? Let's hear what it says.
But I think the answer is a lot more simple. I think sometimes we might be overcomplicating it.
Yeah.
It says, is it necessary for a Christian to marry? What is the purpose of marriage? The Bible has a lot to say about this topic. Since the first marriage was between the first man and the first woman, it is assumed that the marriage is God's will for most people. It was instituted in the dispensation of innocence, and so therefore it is a holy institution because it happened before the fall. The first reason that the Bible gives for the existence of marriage is simple. Adam was lonely and needed a helper. And so the Bible says, it is not good that man should be alone. So maybe that's the reason for marriage right there, because it's not good that man is alone.
But I don't find, we've gone through the loneliness argument a whole bunch, and I don't find that persuasive because there are all kinds of relationships that can satisfy an anti-loneliness purpose that don't have the unique property that man and woman does.
Sure.
But beyond that, even if I take the loneliness point, and I'll try to steel man that as much as I can, let's say that is correct. It's the first one in the Bible, and let's say that we do agree that the order of mention indicates the priority. Okay. To me, if you're worried about loneliness, that would absolutely compel you to build family. There's nothing more lonely than being old and alone. You should have family as an anti-loneliness gesture. So to me, it serves that purpose anyway. In fact, there's probably no better way to serve that purpose than building family.
Yeah, I mean, the last sentence here says the primary purpose of marriage is fellowship, companionship, the mutual help and comfort. And then it goes on to say the next one is the one purpose of marriage is to create a stable home in which children can grow and thrive. So
Bingo.
It could be a natural outworking, but you still need that first one, right? And you could be completely content if for some reason you weren't able to have children alone with your wife, and you could still put a lot of those virtues on display, like companionship and mutual help, comfort, a lot of those things. I'm actually more compelled as I just remember what Genesis says. It is not good for man to be alone. And I understand that, you could make yourself even less lonely by creating children. But I still think there's a primary reason, and it's just a natural consequence of it. But that's still but
it's not incidental. It's the purpose. It's not like, I went for a walk and I happened to see a bird. No, that's the thing that union does.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought about this. I thought about organizing my thoughts here to try to tie this all up. And if we accept what you're saying here, I have a hypothetical for you that I'd like you to consider, because I actually would like the emailers to consider it too. But I want to emphasize that, again, that I don't necessarily think we're talking about different things here. Like, what God blesses and the reason that it's blessed are kind of two different ways of describing the same thing. So I just want to emphasize for everybody that has disagreement, I think I see way more agreement here than disagreement. And I want to stay focused on that. And I don't want people to think that I'm attacking people who think that there's some other primary reason for marriage beyond children. But if children aren't the primary point of marriage, according to God, God's blessing, God's honor, and these are different things. You don't grant my premise that these are actually the same thing. God blesses the union for a reason independent of and separate from children. Children are merely incidental. They're not the organizing principle. Different things, and I'm getting that wrong. Here is my question for that perspective. Would it be morally acceptable, as in, when I say morally acceptable, I mean pursuant to God's purpose? Would it be godly? Would it be what God wants us to do? If all of humanity ceased having children, let's say that everybody decided to get married in a godly way. One man, one woman, they're all faithful to each other. Nobody makes marital sins otherwise, but they all decide for their own reasons, you know what, children are not for us. We're going to have a godly marriage, just us. We're going to have companionship, no loneliness, but no children, because children are an incidental consequence of marriage and not the organizing principle. And I know it's a little bit of a silly hypothetical, but let's say this happened. Everybody does that. As a consequence, the species dies out. Is that morally acceptable pursuant to God's purpose, or is that not? Now, if just the blessed union independent of children is the purpose, and there's nothing more to it, and that's primary, I don't see how you can say there's anything wrong with that hypothetical. In fact, everybody's living pursuant to God's purpose. That's exactly what they should do. If there is something wrong with that, and I think there is, then there must be something primary that marriage serves. I think God has a purpose for us that necessarily includes a future and the creation of life, as we heard earlier. The only way that happens properly, pursuant to God's will, is through the institution of marriage. And so I don't think it's fine if everybody opts out of having kids. I think that is actually a rejection of God's purpose. And that's why I would say that children are primary.
Totally agree. I don't know if anybody's saying that children are incidental or a natural byproduct, because we can't ignore the follow-up command in Genesis to be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
So I totally agree that if everybody, a couple who, pretend you have a man and a wife, maybe in their mid-20s, and they're both Christian, and they have a godly marriage, and they say, we are going to elect not to have kids out of just because we're already completely fulfilled. I think that would be disobedient to Scripture. If it was not to serve any other reason. I know there are some people have reasons to elect to not have children temporarily because maybe they're missionaries and they're going to go into a dangerous part of the country or the dangerous part of the world, and it would not be wise or prudent for them to have children now while they're sharing the gospel around the world. But I think it reveals an underlying hidden motive, like there's that is ultimately selfish, because children are a gift from the Lord. And so I don't see by saying that the organizing principle of marriage is first the loneliness and that it is not good for man to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that means, man, this is more than I bargained for tonight.
Why doesn't it mean that, though? If everybody just accepts, well, I'm doing this not to be lonely because that's what God says.
Because there are additional
fulfilling
ways that God has made for us to bask even more in the comfort.
But if there are additional ways that are lacking, and that makes the first way that you described unacceptable, then something else must be primary.
Well, I think it can still be the primary with some follow-up commands and benefits.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What I'm saying is that all of the responsibilities, obligations, the reason for the blessing, it is all in service to, it is organized around the children. That doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't benefits to you or other reasons this is a good thing to do. It's just that if you remove the children from the equation, I think everybody knows that there's something lacking. If everybody decides to do that, there's something lacking in the fulfillment of the purpose here, as in the purpose has not been fulfilled. There's something more, there's something primary that we're not doing. Even if you're not lonely anymore, if everybody dies out because nobody had kids, we didn't fulfill that purpose.
I mean, I think it's just the desire to get married, the desire not to be alone. And I just think it's part and parcel of the nature of marriage. It's part and parcel of our nature that God has instilled in us to procreate. Obviously, there's just the conjugal union that like fulfills like sexual desires, but also, you know, what it does for it even unites a husband and wife closer to be engaged in the same mission to carry on their lineage and to pass things on to posterity. God commands us to be fruitful and multiply. As you know.
So have I convinced you or not?
I don't know. I mean,
that's fine.
I might be a little bit more confused, but I do think it's splitting hairs at the end of the day.
This is, and I agree. And again, I don't say that to dismiss callers, emailers. I'm not saying, oh, we're splitting hairs. So what are you doing? No, it's important to get these things right. But I do think that we are at some level rephrasing the same point or recharacterizing the same point. Mm-hmm. And I know I didn't put you on the spot to resolve this debate today. So I appreciate your participation in it.
Thank you.
When I say like, the reason I don't put you on the spot to have an answer too is because to me, this is totally non-controversial. I actually thought that I would receive pushback from people of alternative lifestyles, and I'm sure they probably would push back. People who, well, I'm gay and why don't I count, or why I have this and why don't I count? I'm actually very surprised, and again, it's not a dismissive thing, but the pushback from perspectives of faith has surprised me, and so I'm interested in working through that, because that is not the area in which I would expect to receive resistance on this point. But anyway, I have more emails not related to that. Hopefully, a little more simple. But you got a little bit of time. I know we're coming up. We're at 2 hours, so we'll try to make quick work here. But anyway, Seal Clubber. There we go. It's my anniversary today, the 15th, but I'm alone due to a mutual restraining order from her actions. I hate the uncertainty about our future, as I'm not even 30. How do I navigate life's instability without... sorry, I forgot to put this up for you. Let me get that up. How do I navigate life's instability without losing faith? Prayers appreciated. He clarified later his anniversary was on the 15th. He's been married for 5 years. Some people are advising divorce, which he rejects on principle. Does that make him foolish if his principles lead to further strife and unstable faith? First of all, I'm sorry to hear the circumstance. Prayers to you and your family. Now, in order to consider divorce in any way, I'd have to hear of the reason, which to me, there are really a few. Infidelity, physical violence. That's probably about it. We could talk about maybe valid reasons if that's helpful for this point, but I don't think there's anything foolish about rejecting divorce on principle. It's the correct thing to do. As we've discussed, it's a holy institution for a reason. Beyond that, your word matters. You made a commitment. You should stand by that in all contexts, but especially this one, the most important one. You're an honest person. That's why you do it. But as far as losing faith in difficult times, well, that's the test, isn't it? And I know I'm new to this, but I've had my fair share of difficult times over the last year or so. And that's the point, is tough times build faith. We don't necessarily, you want faith in easy times too, but the easy times don't really test it. You have to put your faith to the test in the challenging times. Without knowing your specifics, I would encourage you to maintain the commitment that you made with your wife, of course, to honor your marriage and to stay committed to it. Have faith in God in pursuing your purpose in doing that. If you do everything you can to uphold your word, maintain your commitment, do what you said you were going to do, not only to her, but before God, you will know, no matter how this goes, even if she finds her way away from you, that you did everything in your power to maintain your obligations and stay on the right path. So how do you maintain faith by doing that? Well, you believe that there is a purpose for you tomorrow, because there is. You were put here for a reason. Continue to pursue that reason no matter what. Godspeed. God bless. You talk about, Matthew, you talk about some things are the way they are just because God says so, or God wills it, or God defines it, however you phrased it. To me, that's kind of one of those things that when you ask all the whys, you get all the way down the sequence. There is a purpose for your life, and God made it so. Why? I don't know, but I know that I know there is. And I know there is because everybody gets up for some reason in the morning. If there was no purpose and it didn't matter at all, people wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Without knowing the specifics, I mean, just by what he's describing, I'm really sorry you're going through this. God is not surprised. Psalm 139 says, in your book were written every one of them, the days that were formed for you. And so I do think that the Lord can redeem any situation, no matter how dark it gets. I would just encourage this man to surround himself with wise counsel. So if there's a pastor, if there's other men in his church, to surround himself with men who are older and wise and that can pray for him.
Well, thank you. That was Seal Clubber. God bless you, and I hope the best for you. Be humble. This was his first question. He asked about the sign tapping earlier, but following up on my submission last week, I don't think we even need a sort of two-country solution to unify the country, or to split the country, I guess. I think it would simply take the majority of Americans to stand up and say, you will abide by these core principles, or you will GTFO voluntarily or otherwise. And every sane person will look around at their options and assimilate. Most insane people will self-deport and will deport the rest. So this is a question about, like, if we were to split up as a country, Matthew, how would this go and what are the moral principles about it? I don't remember the exact question, but those are the themes we're getting at. Now, as if we were to split up as a country on kind of constitutional lines, and I've characterized this, Matthew, as constitution or nah, basically. Like, you guys can do your commie stuff over there. We're going to do constitution too, but very serious this time over here, I guess would be the fault lines here.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I would prefer voluntary solutions to achieve that. That's what the American Revolution was. It was looking at the crown and saying, you did violations X, Y, and Z. We aren't interested in that. We're going to leave you now. And if you have problems with that, you come and get us. And they did, or they tried to. But that upholds, it's morally principled in that it stands up for yourself without committing undue aggression is the idea. That's what you're trying to do. If our country were to split, and we grant that as a good idea, that's the sort of method or path I would prefer to take. However, if we want to be a little tougher, a little stronger, a little more Lincoln-like, like the caller earlier, I want to take this point as strongly as I can. That is to say, is there room for being a little more pushy, even with words? There is no doubt that people respond to strong leadership. That is to say, if you start telling people how it is, a lot of people have a tendency to get in line. That's why we don't, I think it's one of the troubles of the kind of libertarian, freedom, liberty-minded community. We all just want to be left alone, and so do I. But that ignores the fact that leadership is necessary and serves a purpose. And if you don't step up for morally square leadership, some degenerate comes in and does it. So even if you have to be a little more forceful in telling people how it is, that is kind of necessary insofar as, like, there's a leadership void that has to be filled. If you're filling it pursuant to moral ends, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I'm willing to allow people to get a little bit bossy in that regard. But, I still prefer to persuade people by reason rather than gunpoint. Here's how we should solve this. Don't you agree? But reason has been in short supply lately, and there are a lot of people pointing guns. So you got to be realistic about that reality too.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree with that. At some point, you have to reflect, are we compatible with one another? And
what is the purpose of a country?
Exactly.
I think it's having kids. Okay. Did you have more thoughts on that? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I mean, are we compatible? Can we share a country? Can we live peacefully together?
What do we agree on anymore? I have a hard time explaining. Yeah. Other than, like I said, 1776 is cool now for the moment, but will it be cool next week still? I don't know.
Yeah.
Captain Risberry, a progressive YouTuber, recently asked about his thoughts on Jay Jones's text. Do you know the Jay Jones Virginia AG thing, Matthew?
Is this different than the Young Republicans group chat?
This guy's running for AG in Virginia, and it was recently came out that he was texting a few years ago about the GOP House Speaker in Virginia. I hope that guy's kids die. And someone said, "What are you serious?" And he said, "Yeah, that would help him change his mind politically. That would get him." A lot of
people have been comparing that to the leaked group text.
Correct. Yeah,
and saying, like, this is somebody who's actually wishing harm on children, and was asked a follow-up. He was given an opportunity to pull back, and he doubled down.
Yeah. So he said, the Captain Risberry here, the emailer, is saying there's a progressive YouTuber asked about that guy. And he said that based off of the fact that those texts were back from January 2022, he did not care. To me, this seems like motivated reasoning because Jones was still an adult man back then, not a 14-year-old or something. Do you think there should be a point where something that someone said, no matter how inflammatory, should not be condemned because it was a long time ago, even if they were an adult back then? Well, it is a very solid defense.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
But I think the most important thing for forgiveness, I think pretty much everything is forgivable in life, at least most things, provided there is remorse for the actions or whatever happened, but the remorse is sincere. Now, Jay Jones, the Virginia AG texter guy, he has apologized. He was on the debate stage the other night, and he said he was ashamed. So he's apologizing for this. And I do think that to the extent he's sincere, you can decide if you believe he's sincere or not. If you are sincere, I think that you should be given forgiveness. But I don't think that forgiveness entitles you to additional benefits. That is to say, I don't think forgiveness means I have to vote for you for political office or I have to be your best friend. I think it just entitles you to the fact that I won't try to punish you. I won't intervene with you. I will leave you be. To me, that's what forgiveness is. And it's allowing yourself to be free from anger against that person as well. But how long ago it happened to me is not a factor in forgiveness. I would have to ask the person, you said this a long time ago, do you still agree with that today? Do you still mean that today? And if they said, no, I don't, and I'm embarrassed that I did back then, and I'm sorry for it, I'd say, well, okay, fair enough. And then I just have to evaluate, do I believe them that they've changed their mind, or do I not? I'm not a voter in Virginia. I wouldn't vote for him anyway. I'm going to guess that the apology is probably more out of political necessity than any sincere change of heart, but that's just my opinion. To answer the question, no, it is not a time duration thing where anything you said X amount of time ago is automatically excused.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the statute of limitations should be?
Yeah, how long is a long time ago?
Yeah.
It could get blurry. Like if this happened 3 months ago and it's different than if it happened in January 2022, which is when it happened. But yeah, I like what you said. I agree with it.
Just a couple more here, and then we'll grab some super chats. We'll call it a night. But given that gluttony is a sin and people who are obese have engaged in a significant amount of gluttony, is it fair to say that all obese people are inherently extremely sinful people? Do you think it is acceptable to harbor prejudice and discriminatory attitudes against obese people based on all of this? To me, Matthew, this is a hate the sin, love the sinner type thing. Gluttony's bad. Gluttony's sinful. It's bad to be overweight. It should be discouraged. Doesn't mean I hate anybody who has some extra pounds. It doesn't mean I want them to be punished. But I do want a culture that recognizes it's unhealthy. It's a disservice to self. It's a disservice to others. Now, as far as your own opinions or prejudices, I think you're entitled to whatever opinion in your own mind you wish to have. And I think it's yours by nature. Do I make certain assumptions about people based on their weight or physical presentation? Does it indicate to me maybe a lack of discipline or a lack of work ethic? Yeah, it does. Is that an unfair assumption sometimes? Probably. It's probably not true for everybody, but I think overwhelmingly, the weight problem in this country is a function of a lack of discipline, as in refrain from eating so much, a lack of work ethic, as in try a little harder with your physical exertion to work off these pounds. And that will shape my opinion probably of that person, but people shape opinions of you for all sorts of reasons. They might not like your face. They might think you talk too long about the purpose of marriage. Who knows why they might like or dislike you. I don't think that there's I guess what I'm saying is I don't think there's anything wrong with having an opinion of somebody based on first impression, and anybody who says it's wrong is lying to you because they do it all the time. But I want a culture that understands and promotes proper values here. It's not like if you're an overweight person, you're a bad guy, you should be condemned, and no, of course, everybody can be better. I can be better. I can be better with discipline and work ethic. I like pizza. Okay. It's awesome. Probably shouldn't eat it as much as I do. I could work out harder, but I have other obligations. When you say that this sin is bad, it's not as though you're saying everybody who has engaged in it or engages in it is beneath me. No, we're all imperfect. We're all sinners. We all should aim higher toward that perfect version of ourselves that God has theoretically created, but we never actually achieve, or God himself represents, I suppose. That's the point. So it's not about like hating people or condemning people. It's just like, let's all aim for the best version of ourselves that we can, myself included, hopefully yourself included, ourselves included. Your thoughts, Matthew?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think the word inherently extremely sinful people, our pastors in America have been really light on preaching about gluttony. It's not, our modern sensibilities don't like to be told that being fat is wrong. And so I think a part of the problem is American pastors need to start developing a doctrine about like the health of a body and like what scripture has to say and like what principles we can extract from that. And so people need to be told that. I don't think it's acceptable to harbor prejudice and discriminatory attitudes. I think We should be responding to people with love and the truth. Sometimes if you have the relational equity to speak into somebody's life who may be a friend, a fellow believer who's 60, 70 pounds overweight, maybe the loving thing to do is to gently, bring it up. But not to like treat people poorly or with.
Yeah. It doesn't change their worth as people, of course.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I agreed with that. I don't know. The way we're headed, though, we need more body shaming. You got to call out your fat friends. Do it aggressively. Tell them they suck. No, I'm just kidding. Pete Hegseth was doing that on the stage, calling out the fat military leadership.
Yeah, the fat generals.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just need maybe I'm not the right person to tell that to somebody, but maybe I have a friend who lost a lot of weight and they say, hey man, I know what you're going through. And maybe they have the proper lens to like share that message with somebody. And
sure,
it's a more wise way to share that with somebody.
Yeah, agreed. All right, last one. Gnome Chomp Ski. Given your connections to the state of Minnesota, did you call duck, duck, goose, duck, duck, gray duck when you were a child? What's the name that you're going to give it when you play it with your children? Now, I was born in suburban Minneapolis, Matthew, and my entire extended family lives in Minnesota still. I grew up there until I was 10. I don't know that I ever actually played one round of this game. I guess I must have. I just don't remember. But I am familiar enough with Minnesota tradition to know it is properly duck, duck, gray duck, not duck, duck, goose. So I guess in honor of my heritage, if I play the game with my boys, it'll be duck, duck, gray duck. You ever play that game?
Is it the same game? It's just two different names?
Different name, yeah.
Okay. I always called it duck, duck, goose.
Yeah. I don't know
didn't
why.
know that. That's interesting about Minnesota.
It's like a regional thing. It's duck, duck, gray duck.
Duck, duck, gray duck.
I don't know.
That's cool.
I don't know what that's about. But anyway, thank you to all of our voicemailers, our emailers tonight. As a reminder, if you'd like to leave a voicemail or email for the show, mattchristiansenmedia.com/contact. And that's how you do it. There's a click to call button for the voicemails and a box for the emails. Appreciate your participation in the show. And hey, by the way, very much appreciate the super chatters, guys. I know I made you wait a million years tonight. So let's get into super chat. We'll close out and we'll call it a night. So let me pull those up. Over on Rumble, Laughing Boy. Can we go back to Batman realized Philip Dick description of androids in his books are the demon people in reality that we all contend with daily. Also, Batman, those thoughts are the path to being faithful. Now, this is a callback, Matthew, to another friend of mine who sits on the show. His name is Batman, and he has a very Batman-like voice. So I'm not talking about the actual Batman here. But I can't remember the conversation. This was actually like a week or two ago. Because Batman has really been wrestling with how to respond to the Charlie Kirk situation morally. And I think that's the fundamental question that we had on the stream the night that Charlie got shot was how do you beat the demons without becoming a demon? To me, that's the question. And I think Batman is really going through that in his own mind too. He was talking about androids. It's like when I say demon, I've kind of revised that over time to mean like people captured by the demons. I'm not denying the humanity of these people, but I do believe that demonic forces capture people in that way. And I believe I've seen it. So what Batman was calling, what I had called the demon people, Batman was calling androids. But I guess Batman realized, I don't remember exactly how that fits in, Laughing Boy. Sorry to leave you hanging. Anyway, I appreciate your support for the show. And thanks for the thoughts. Over on YouTube and Tippy, Long Dong John just got a $5 food stamp in Seattle and thought I'd use it to pay for a super chat. You're welcome. Well, I appreciate that very much. I had posted about that this morning, Matthew. I don't know if you've heard, and this is not even a new scheme. It's common in a lot of urban centers. But food stamps, EBT cards, scammers will buy those for cash off of the beneficiaries who are drug addicts. They'll either give them drugs or give them cash to buy drugs. And so effectively, we have taxpayer funding of the drug use and the overdoses in places like Seattle. It's completely insane. But what else is new in those cities?
Yeah.
Did you ever get over to Seattle at all?
Is the government shutdown affecting the EBT or anything right now?
Supposedly there was talk of that, but I don't think there's any effect yet.
Yeah. I can't imagine they'll ever let people not have their EBT. They got to get, what they got to get.
You ever head west on I-90 and go Seattle way?
Yeah, a few times. I used to go
Recently?
every month.
Not anymore?
It's been over a year. I have not been in a long time.
Jack, day 4 of donating till I find a wife. I work from home to make enough money to support both of us and kids, of course. There you go. There are likely more women my age who will watch this stream than live nearby. The average age around here is 40. Jack is trying to find a wife through my audience, and it has happened before, Matthew. There are marriages and children, the purpose of, that have been born through this stream, which actually, sincerely, is my honor to know that has been achieved. It's not common. I could probably count them on 1 or 2 hands, but it has happened, and it's
So
it's
these
really
are people
cool.
that connected through comment sections? Or...
Just the stream, the various community elements of the show. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
Are they
Jack's
still
trying
going
to
strong?
Well, Jack's trying to do that now, and I'm kind of reshaping how all that's organized on my site, so it's kind of temporarily on hold because this show has been through different iterations. But Jack is looking for a wife. So if that sounds good to you, if you're an eligible young lady and you're looking for a man of traditional values who works from home and makes enough money to support your family, you email me because I have Jack's email and I will connect the two of you, and hopefully we can make a connection here. Joshy boy. Oh, great. There's another one. This is maddening. Oh, this is maddening. This is maddening. It's maddening too, but that's a good one. I like that, Joshy boy. Newbie of Death reviews. New Matt and old Matt look like 2 Mr. Potato Heads, and one has Mrs. Potato Head's wig. I was gonna say you got the hair for both of us, so
I'm due for a haircut. So
you are you gonna donate those locks?
Probably not. No, but I did last time I got a haircut. My hair was this long. I walked in my house. My daughter started crying.
I've seen men do that with their beards too, and I'm always kind of in this half bearded state. But my boys have never seen me clean shaven. I wonder what the reaction would be. They'd probably be like, I didn't even notice because your beard sucks that bad. Yeah, thanks. Producer Tim, so you guys watched the show The Chosen, or have you watched that? It's a dramatization of the Gospels. Set dad up with it, so he set his dad up, who's in the hospital. All the best to your dad, of course. He seems to be really enjoying it. Once he figured out how to use both the tablet, or how to use the tablet, he's watching it on the Amazon app. Well, I'll consider that. I was not aware. Do you know that show, The Chosen?
Yeah, it's sort of like a episode series of the gospel, essentially, of the life of Jesus. And I am not a particular fan of the show. I have my quibbles with it, but I don't think anybody who engages with it is not like a sincere Christian or anything like that.
They are extreme sinners deserving of condemnation.
Yeah,
I think.
Where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Newbie of Death review. Here's a little shampoo and conditioner money for new Matt. Okay, well, that's good. Do you have a sponsorship? Do you got anybody like some kind of conditioner?
My wife, she actually home makes our own shampoo.
Wow, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And it's just you're not you don't do conditioner, just a shampoo.
No, I don't need
shampoo?
to. It's just like I don't know. It's all in one. Whatever she's putting in it. It's really cool.
Zeld Gear. No note. Thanks for supporting the show. Ryan Allen. Lincoln offered to reinstate slavery as an offer to end the war, among other things, and the South said no to all of them. That's an element of the history I was not familiar with, that Lincoln said, okay, you got me, you can have slavery if we stop doing this.
I don't know if it's that simple. I do know, if I learned this from the Brian McClanahan show, Delaware was a slave-holding state that remained in the Union. So that kind of is inconvenient for that, if you're considering,
Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought of that.
And New Jersey and Delaware were both slave-holding states in the Union.
So what was the organizing principle of the Union?
Yeah, coercion, maybe. But Lincoln asked one of his Republican friends, how much would it take for you to emancipate your slaves if we were to just compensate you? Okay. And he gave him a number. And Lincoln said, yeah, Congress will never pass that.
It was too big, huh?
It was too big. And so I guess bloodshed of 600,000 people, war damages, destruction of cities, famines, which probably cost more in the long run.
Over $1.2 trillion.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Joshy boy. So if a married couple is unable to have children, they're going to hell. Do I understand the voicemail correctly? I don't know if he said that. I think he was saying that the purpose of, if I understood the voicemail correctly, it was the purpose of marriage is to get into heaven. You honor God, you get into heaven, if I understood correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, my question on that is, okay, honor God how? Why does God deem this union honorable? We've been through that.
Yeah, maybe the guy who submitted that email, I bet if he could clarify, he would not say that if you don't get married, you can't go to heaven.
I don't think that's what he meant, but yeah, he's welcome to call in and say, nope, that's exactly what I meant. I don't know. Producer Tim, if people don't call him Harry Shit On from now on, I did not make that. Yeah, it's not Harry Sisson, it's Harry Shit On. You're right. Then what are we even doing here? That's right. I need to hire you as a writer, Tim. Clearly I missed that one. The only way that Dems and journalists never saw Biden's decline is if he happened to be lucid every time they were around him, or they never watched TV, which is BS. Well, there's clearly lying to some extent going on here. Also says, that man who's 5'6", this is a guy who tore down the Trump sign, to stand on his tippy toes to rip down the banner. I guess we know why this guy couldn't just be the bigger man. Okay. They're on fire tonight. Also, when you ignore left-wing violence, this is a right-wing problem, is a stupid take. Well, that seems to be what it is. I mean, like the things that were excluded when I looked through some of these accountings of politically motivated violence, Matthew, were ridiculous. Anyway, it was, I can't remember, like all the attacks on ICE were excluded because those were deemed not to be left-wing violence. There was a bunch of stuff, attacks on like pro-Israel people were deemed not to be left-wing because it was deemed ethno-nationalist in motive and not left-wing politics. A bunch of insane, all the people who say free Palestine and chuck a Molotov, or, like even the guy in DC, remember he gunned down those 2 embassy employees? And said free Palestine. Now I get it, like it's more complicated than left and right. There are varying opinions about that conflict on both, but free Palestine is generally not a right-wing rallying cry, even for people who are Israel critical on the right,
Yeah, you don't see that signaling. They're just, people on the right who are critical of Israel are just more focused on, AIPAC and its influence in the government.
That's what he would write in. He would deliver an essay about foreign influence in our government is what he would do. He wouldn't say free Palestine with the fist. Ryan Allen, God gave Adam and Eve more tasks than just be fruitful before the fall happened. Genesis 1:24 and on. God made man to subdue the earth's wilderness. Multiplication was a means to that end. Cart before the horse. Okay, so that's interesting. Now we're saying that the production of children, the raising of children, is actually in pursuit of another end. That I haven't reached the end of the line here. Because I thought, in my sequence, it's marriage in service to children. Now we're saying children in service to the conquering of the wilderness.
Yeah, I think that's the dominion mandate, to take dominion over the land. And that's, subduing the animals, cultivating the land, bearing children, so that's a good point.
I don't think that's, that could be possible. Maybe I haven't reached the end of the line. Even still, I think all of these things, rather than being points in conflict, are points in complement. They're kind of necessary components of each other. So
if you put it all under the umbrella of the dominion mandate,
all right, I can
all be sort of underneath that.
Ain't no dominion without kids. The earth's going to conquer you eventually, so you better have some kids to figure that out. Anyway, I know we went a little bit long, so hey, I really appreciate your time and giving us some extra time tonight on the stream. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss before we're out of here?
No, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for including me and letting me lend some perspective. It's been fun.
All right. Well, thank you. I hope to have you back, and you're welcome back whenever you like, but we'll call it there tonight. And thanks to everybody for tuning in tonight. Thanks to our live chatters, super chatters, making the live production a success if you're listening later on demand. Thank you kindly as well. Appreciate our callers, our emailers. Thanks, of course, to Matthew Mastronardi for sitting in tonight. All of his links are atop the description, by the way. Thanks to producer Tim for all his help. MattChristiansenmedia.com is where you find me. I'll be back on Sunday. Have a great night.